So head over to BBC Sounds to get your fill. Right, around 25 minutes to go then until the Austrian Grand Prix gets underway. So let's hand you over to Ben Edwards and our team in Spielberg.
Thanks, Katie. Round 11 of the 2025 FIA F1 World Championship brings the series back into Europe after that last visit into Canada. The Austrian Grand Prix all set to take place on the Spielberg-based Red Bull Ring with 71 laps of the 2.7-mile climbing and descending ring, and it's going to be a tough one, there's no doubt. I'm Ben Edwards, as you've heard, joined alongside me with Alice Powell, who took pole, won the race and set fastest lap in the W Series event here a few years ago, and we're joined by F1 correspondent for BBC Sport, Andrew Benson, and giving us the insight from the paddock, from the pit lane, and now on the grid. Rosanna Tennant is our eyes and ears for the build-up to this event. And Rosanna, it's pretty warm again out there. That can have an effect on this.
It really can. It is roasty toasty, Ben. It's just over 29 degrees, almost 30 degrees air temperature, and the track is warm too, up at 48 degrees. So that is going to pose a few challenges to the drivers, but the atmosphere here is incredible. It's a beautiful day, so the fans have turned out in their thousands. They're all finding their seats in the grandstands. I look up from the grid and I can see them all sitting there. Lot of orange, both papaya orange and orange, supporting Max Verstappen, the Dutch army, out in force. Of course, he's king of the ring here. And I've just been watching the cars come to grid, Ben, and McLaren were very early out of the garages and onto the grid. Lando Norris pulled up into his grid spot, got out, they put an umbrella over his cockpit now to make sure it stays as cool as possible. He went over and found his things on the grass, all under an umbrella that his physio had laid out. Then he had a quick chat with his engineer, Will Joseph, and he's headed back to the garage just to have a little bit of time out before heading to the front of the grid for the national anthem. But all eyes on Lando Norris, so many cameras in his face as he got out of his McLaren car. The pressure is on.
Absolutely, yes. And it is a very important race for Lando Norris, starting from pole position, 22 points behind his teammate Oscar Piastri. So let's just remind you, it's Oscar Piastri who leads the championship at this stage. We're not quite at the halfway distance in Formula One calendar so far. We've got Silverstone next week, the British Grand Prix. At the end of that, we will be halfway through the season. But right now, it's Piastri who leads. Norris is second. Max Verstappen is currently third in the championship, some 43 points behind Oscar Piastri. George Russell is currently fourth, and Charles Leclerc is fifth in the points. And interestingly, Alice, Charles Leclerc had a good qualifying. In fact, both Ferraris qualified well yesterday. Charles Leclerc is going to be second on the grid on that front row with Lando Norris. May well challenge him into turn 1 or turn 3, and Lewis Hamilton starting fourth. So Ferrari looking in better shape this time.
They are. They bought some upgrades this weekend which are proving to be slightly better for them. I mean, Charles Leclerc was very happy at qualifying in second place yesterday, but I just think they're going to struggle when it comes to race pace in terms of the simulations that we've seen over the practice sessions. They're probably sitting around about fourth in the teams in terms of race pace. McLaren, of course, are the fastest, Mercedes second, Red Bull third, and then Ferrari around about 0.3 off the average race pace. So all that Charles Leclerc can hope for really is to try and jump Lando Norris. Of course, he's going to have Oscar Piastri that's going to be trying to make sure that he jumps him to try and keep in touch with his teammate. We've obviously got 3 DRS zones at this circuit. DRS can be very effective here. It can still be tricky to overtake, but unlike some other circuits, it's certainly a lot easier.
Absolutely right, yes. And as you say, I mean, McLaren in very good shape at the moment in the Constructors' Championship, of course. They have a huge lead over Mercedes that are currently second in the Constructors, Ferrari third, ahead of Red Bull. And of course, part of that is that it's been Max Verstappen who's been doing nearly all of the points scoring for Red Bull. And similarly, his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, way down the grid, he's down in 18th place on the grid. So it's been tough for Red Bull to get points from both for this one. Let's hear from the boss of Red Bull as Rosanna is with Christian Horner.
Thanks, Ben. Christian, you've just told me it's hot. It really is. What challenge does that pose to you guys today?
Well, you can feel it, coming off the asphalt through your shoes. So, of course, tyres are crucial, and they're very sensitive to temperature. And this is the hottest it's been all weekend. Now, how that will affect, we know McLaren's are good in the heat. Ferrari, can be good. So let's see.
Can you be good? What can you do with Max Verstappen from P7?
Look, we were all right yesterday on the long run, so let's see what happens in today. First of all, get a good start, get into the race, and there's only 7 corners here, but it can be a really active 7 corners.
And it's been pretty active off track this weekend as well. A lot of chat about George Russell, Max Verstappen. Is this Max Verstappen's last Austrian Grand Prix with Red Bull?
No, I mean, most of the chat is from George. So, look, we know where we stand with Max. We've got a contract till 28. Everything else is just rumours and subjective. So
no worries about performance clauses and all of that.
Look, you've always got to perform in this business. That's normal. And we want to make sure we're back close to the front as quickly as possible.
Well, good luck with that task today.
Thank you.
Well, good to hear from Christian Horner, and Verstappen, as I mentioned, still third in the championship, and he is over 20 points ahead of George Russell, who is currently in 4th in the series. So an absolutely glorious day in Austria. It is going to be warm, as we've heard, though, with the tyres building up their temperatures more and more as we go through this race. We are expecting this to be probably a 2-stop race for the most of the teams that are running up front. That's what we're expecting. We're expecting the medium and the hard compound tyres to be the main choice. Of course, somebody may try to go for some soft tyres at some point just to see if they can gain an advantage, but for most of the leaders that's less likely.
I agree. I think that taking the risk on the softs is a bit too risky, certainly with these temperatures that are much higher than what we've experienced today. Likely majority in the front at least will be starting on those medium tyres. It's going to give them the best chance of getting that run all the way up the hill into turn 1. It can get a bit messy in turn 1, and I will be massively surprised if nobody opts to go through sort of over that sausage curb, and on the exit the stewards usually turn a blind eye to that at the start of the race. So potentially there's some gains there that we'll keep an eye out for, but it's majority of those are going to probably start certainly in that top 10 on that medium tyre.
Well, you're absolutely right. Lando Norris will have that threat going into that first corner. Some Charles Leclerc from alongside him on the front row. He's got his teammate Oscar Piastri right behind him, starting 3rd. Lewis Hamilton not far away. But for Lando Norris, this is his 3rd pole of the season, and he's won on both occasions from pole position so far this year. Let's hear from him. He spoke just a little earlier.
Pretty confident. I mean, the car's been incredible all weekend, so excited. I mean, it's always a good race here. It's always a fun one. I'm sure it's going to be the same today, but the more boring I can make it, the better it is for me.
You've spoken of how much you love driving around this circuit. Do you have a message for all of the fans in the grandstands?
I mean, I always say thanks. There's a lot of supporters here for McLaren and for myself, even some of the Dutch ones. But yeah, like I said, there's always been great races here, so enjoy it and have some fun.
Thank you, Lando. Go well today.
Well, we shall see how it all goes for Lando Norris, starting from that pole position ahead of Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, who won this race last year. He's starting in 5th place. Now, part of the action that saw George Russell win this race last year was an incident that went on between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, and that's not impossible. But of course, with Verstappen starting 7th, I think that's less likely to happen on the opening lap, that's for sure.
Less likely, 100%, but it's not likely that we see safety cars here. They don't come around too often around this track, but if someone happens to make a benefit of potentially a VSC, virtual safety car, or a safety car, that can be a sort of a 10-second advantage if you manage to pit during that window. Green flag pit stops are around about 20.3 seconds. So yeah, who knows? We have seen it in the past. We've seen it this year, that making an advantage of a safety car. But yeah, it's unlikely that we'll see Max and Lando together on track, at least fighting for top spot. But we never know.
We never know, absolutely. Well, our F1 correspondent for BBC Sport, Andrew Benson, is with us as well. And Andrew, I know you've been looking into a bit more of the strategy for this race, haven't you? Is there anything we've particularly got to keep an eye on in terms of strategy once this race gets underway?
Well, I don't think it's as locked in a 2-stop as Pirelli's predictions have suggested. I've been speaking to some of the teams, and they say that it's a 1 or a 2, as ever in Formula 1. I think from McLaren's point of view, they look to have a pace advantage over everybody else, so they'll probably just react to everybody else. it depends on how the race pans out, of course. If Leclerc is between Norris and Piastri, that's where they get to a reactive race, so Norris can just cover himself against Leclerc, for example, and they want to get Piastri ahead of Leclerc. If it's Norris against Piastri, then it becomes a different question. There's a straight race between the two of them. How do they handle that? They'll want to be fair, but it's obviously not easy to be fair necessarily, but there are certain rules. Like the driver in front always has pit stop priority. Some people will try a one-stop, I think, particularly in the midfield. So let's see how it pans out. Even though the hot weather obviously takes it away from a one-stop, on the other hand, the degradation has been less than expected so far this weekend. So it's one of those races where the teams go in with an open mind.
Good. Well, that makes it interesting in a way. But it is warming up, as you say. Track temperature is just coming up to 50 degrees. It's on 49.5 at the moment. Rosanna, you're standing on that track, so it's getting warmer and warmer.
It's so warm down here, and actually they've been watering bits of the grass alongside the circuit just to prevent any fires. We had a fire yesterday when Lewis Hamilton ran wide, and that caused a red flag. So they're cautious not to repeat that during the Grand Prix. But the grid is nice and busy, lots of people here trying to get a glimpse of the drivers and their cars. And if I look over to the top spot on the grid, Lando Norris is just standing very calmly, big smile on his face. He's just given a big smile to his engineer, Will Joseph, and he's just standing there with an umbrella over him, no one talking to him, just on his own. He's just had a little look at his watch, and he's turning around now to head to his things with his physio and start to get ready. And if I look the other way over to P2, Charles Leclerc's a little ahead of the game. He's already got his balaclava on, being shielded from the sunshine by his trainer with an umbrella as well. He's just adjusting the balaclava, getting it just right around his chin and the back of his neck. And now he's bringing his overalls up over his shoulders, stretches his arms out wide to make it fit properly, and he's going to zip himself in, getting ready for what is to come here in Spielberg. It's going to be an exciting race off the line between those two.
Absolutely right. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating as they go off the line. Interesting to me, Alice, as well, one of the things is that the rookies, generally, there were some good jobs done by rookies in qualifying yesterday. Liam Lawson in particular, he's qualified in 6th place. Very, very impressive. And then we had a little group of rookies making it into Q2. Funnily enough, we've got some of the most experienced right down at the back, the last row of the grid, for example. We've got Carlos Sainz and Nico Hülkenberg, two hugely experienced Formula One racers, but they didn't have a particularly good day in qualifying.
No, they certainly didn't. Sainz was really disappointed. He was adamant on the radio, wasn't he, when he came into the pits yesterday after being knocked out? He said 100% there is something wrong with this car. He just didn't feel comfortable at all, and in all fairness to him, the onboards that we saw, it didn't look very nice, his Williams in particular. Hülkenberg, well, he just overshot turn 4. He was trying to be too brave on the brakes, had a little lock up and ran wide, and it's such fine margins. Okay, if you're going to exclude Lando Norris, who's over half a second in front of everybody else, but fine margins further out throughout the grid, and one small mistake can cost you a real chunk of time here.
Absolutely right, yeah. We've got, as we mentioned, Yuki Tsunoda down in 18th, Esteban Ocon 17th, Lance Stroll for Aston Martin, who had been showing some very good pace through the free practice sessions, but then Lance was out in Q1, and that was disappointing for him, so he'll be starting in 16th place, out-qualified by his teammate once again, but this time Fernando Alonso did not quite make it into the top 10. Let's go back to Rosanna.
I'm with Racing Bulls team principal Laurent Mekies. Well, this is an interesting one. You've got one driver in Liam Lawson very far up the grid, and then a frustrated Isaac Hadjar starting outside the top 10. How do you approach this one?
You know, on one side it's extraordinary performance from Liam. You know, he has been working on that one for quite a long time, so it's great for him after all the hard work to adapt to the car, and the speed was coming up already for quite a few events, and it's nice to see it coming all together when it matters. In qualifying, it's so good testimony of where the car pace is right now. So Isaac has been on the same pace than Liam all weekend, so of course it's frustrated, but you know, it's only very, very small details. We'll do a better job as a group to nail everything out of quali next time. He will have a strong car today. He will be fast, but honestly, everything you have seen yesterday is probably going to be near irrelevant. It's going to be dominated by by tyre management this afternoon with a much hotter track than Friday, and perhaps a different picking order. So we have to be ready to react to that and to try to adapt.
Is it true to say you've got a better package than the Red Bull car in a way? Because Liam's out-qualified Max Verstappen today. Yuki Tsunoda in the other Red Bull was telling me yesterday he's had to forget everything about your car because it's so tempting to want to drive it like that one, and this Red Bull's so difficult.
No, we really don't think we are, as much as we would like to. In the end, yesterday Max was conditioned by the yellow flag, otherwise he would have been, many tenths in front of us. So it's good that we are competitive, that we are getting closer, but there is no doubt that there is a fair bit of lap time between the top of that midfield and the guys fighting at the front.
Go well today.
Thank you.
Well, good to hear. We're about just under 9 minutes away from the start of this Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso, crash helmet on, and just about to put himself into the Aston Martin. As I mentioned, he's starting in 11th place. Down at the lower end of the top 10, we have Pierre Gasly, and we have Kimi Antonelli, another top rookie this year, of course, Alice, but qualifying didn't go quite so well for Antonelli, especially when you consider he got his first ever podium the last time we saw Formula One racing in Canada.
Yeah, he's been a little bit disappointing this weekend, I think, Antonelli, seeing that he's had experience racing here in the junior categories. I believe he was a race winner here in Formula Regional a couple of years ago, raced here in Formula 2 last year, so he's had experience.
It's especially interesting, I think, that he could...
Andrew, we're just going to go back to Rosanna. She's with James Vowles.
Well, James, firstly, huge congratulations on your extension to your contract. That must feel good.
It feels fantastic. I love this place, and it's great to continue on here for many years to come.
And yet it's been a tricky weekend. The drivers struggling a bit with the soft tyre and then damage on both cars during qualifying yesterday. How's that going to affect you this afternoon?
Yeah, you're spot on. You could see how horrible the balance was once the floor was damaged, but both floors came back in a pretty poor state after just a handful of laps. Simple answer is we can't use the curbs, got to stay off it, but the car's quick, even at our guys, so I'm looking forward to today.
So the drivers are actually going to have to drive around the curbs today and not use the track to its full potential?
It's only in two particular corners where you see those big sausage curbs. If you hit that with anything, it destroys it, so stay off those.
Yeah, do that. Have a good race.
Thank you.
So, hearing from team principal for the Williams team, and let's hope that they do have a decent run this time, as we see Sainz, as he told us, there was a little bit of damage to that car after qualifying, and that was part of the reason that Sainz has ended up down in 19th on the grid. Albon starting in 12th place in the other Williams. But plenty more to look forward to. And another, I was talking about the rookies a little bit, but Gabriel Bortoleto also doing a fantastic job, getting his best qualifying of the season so far. Andrew, it's good to see some of these youngsters really delivering solid results. And Bortoleto, he's up against Nico Hülkenberg, one of the most experienced out there. But here, particularly this weekend, getting his best grid position so far. Can he score his first points, do you think? Because he hasn't scored any so far this year.
Well, that's the thing for Bortoleto. Actually, in qualifying, he's been very impressive this year. It's 7.6 to Hülkenberg, and there's 0.06 of a second between them on average. It's the races where he's been falling short. Nico Hülkenberg scored a lot of points. He did a particularly strong job in Spain, where after the safety car he moved himself up to 5th place. That's where the bulk of Sauber's points have come. Bortoleto will be looking this weekend to deliver on that 8th place on the grid, but I don't know whether it'll be that easy for him, because actually the fastest cars on race pace from the midfield are the Aston Martins and Williamses, so he might be finding that he's got a sort of rear guard action, especially he's got Kimi Antonelli and the Mercedes behind him, so Antonelli at least should get ahead of Bortoleto early on.
Well, it's going to be a fascinating race. We are really looking forward to the Austrian Grand Prix coming up in just a few moments' time. But for now, let's go to the latest Radio 5 news with Nick Qureshi.
The voice of the UK. 5 Live Formula One.
The first ever Austrian Grand Prix was held back in 1964, but here in 2025 we have now got the latest version with Lando Norris on pole position, looking forward to trying to gain some points on his big teammate Oscar Piastri, who is leading the Drivers' Championship at the moment by 22 points. They are starting first and third on the grid. Max Verstappen, their other big rival, he's starting down in 7th despite having a remarkable history of 5 victories around this track in the past. Can he come through from that that far back? Or is Oscar Piastri going to perform better in the race than he did in qualifying? We'll also be keeping an eye on Ferrari, because Charles Leclerc has qualified on the front row. He's won here in the past as well, although he has also had incidents on the first lap where he's had to come back into the pits at the end of that first lap to get repairs done or change parts on the car, and so he's been through ups and downs around this track. We shall see how it goes. Lewis Hamilton starting well up the grid as well in 4th place, so there is plenty to look forward to, and the run to that first corner is going to be absolutely crucial. 25 points on offer, of course, for the win, 18 points for second and 15 points for third. That is what everybody is going to be chasing for, and we are getting very close now to the start of the formation lap around this track. Are McLaren going to be able to take their first win here in Austria since 2001? Well, Lando Norris is certainly going to be going for it. We are moments away from the Austrian Grand Prix on Radio 5 Live. Lando Norris starts on pole position, trying to chase down the 22-point gap to his teammate Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc starts in 2nd place, Piastri in 3rd, and Lewis Hamilton, another former winner around this track, starts in 4th place with Ferrari. George Russell, winner of this race last year, starts in 5th. Liam Lawson, an excellent job for the rookie. He starts in 6th place, but Max Verstappen, a star at this circuit many times with 5 wins, starts in 7th. Gabriel Bortoleto starts in 8th place, Kimi Antonelli in 9th position, and Pierre Gasly in 10th position. Now, there is a problem. We're just seeing that Carlos Sainz has had an issue trying to get off the grid on the formation lap. Carlos Sainz due to start in 19th place, but there's something going on here, Alice.
So he's just come on the radio to say he's stuck in 1st gear, so he's tried to pull away. It looks like he has successfully pulled away and then stopped. So a bit of panic on the Red Bull pit wall. James Vowles is looking quite concerned. On the Williams pit wall, so he's going to have to get pushed back in. His rises up. Let's hear from him.
Something is stopping the car from moving forward. Car is stuck.
Copy, I'm just checking what we can do.
This is a bit of a tricky situation, isn't it? Are they going to have to delay the start of this one now if he's still sitting there? I wonder.
I think we probably will, because we're about to see, or waiting for Lando Norris to just appear over the crest on the run down into turn 9, which is the second to last corner on the circuit. 10 corners on the track, and at the moment he's still on the grid is Carlos Sainz, and a lot of the mechanics have not been allowed to cross the track as well. The marshals are now pushing the Williams out of the way, but Lando's just coming around the final corner, and he's going to be greeted by marshals pushing Sainz's car, but it's hard to push. Race control have said the start has been aborted, because we're seeing a bigger picture now, and we still have all the mechanics on the side, and now Sainz has got going. How bizarre! But he's aborted the start, and he's been the cause of the aborted start, so he will have to come into the pit lane anyway.
Absolutely, yes, he will have to start from the pit lane as a result of that, but it doesn't make much difference, in fact. Andrew, this is obviously a very difficult weekend for Williams. They've had all sorts of incidents and problems going on, and now this as well, but it doesn't change his starting position that much, does it? Because he was due to start on the back row.
That's right, 19th after a very difficult qualifying for him. In fact, Williams has fallen back a little bit in the last 2 or 3 races after a very strong start to the season. They'll be glad that they've got quite a cushion in their 5th place in the Constructors' Championship, but concerned at the same time that there's a long way to go in this season, and that they could come under threat from people behind them.
So that means that everybody else has now lined back up into position. I was going through that full grid. I got down to 10th place with Pierre Gasly. Let me just confirm the other positions right now. So Fernando Alonso is due to start in 11th place. Alex Albon in the other Williams, he's starting 12th. Isaac Hadjar starts in 13th for the Racing Bulls. And then Franco Colapinto, he starts in 14th position ahead of Ollie Behrman. So a couple of the rookies together there. He starts in 15th place in the Haas. Lance Stroll in 16th for Aston Martin. Esteban Ocon in 17th for Haas, and then Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull, he starts 18th. Carlos Sainz was due to start 19th, but he's now heading into the pit lane, and Hulkenberg will be starting on his own at the back. Let's go down to Rosanna.
Well, it was a bit of chaos, really, on the grid, because all the mechanics were standing to one side as the cars headed off on their formation lap. But they would usually cross over the starting grid and go back to the garages. But obviously they couldn't, with Carlos Sainz's car stuck there. Let's hear from him.
I feel like the car is still braking.
Ooh, smoke.
It's on fire, yeah. So the brakes, presumably, they are now trying to sort that out. Mechanics are down there. Dear oh dear, this is not a great start to the day,
mechanics
is it?
down there with a fire extinguisher, and trust me, if you put a fire extinguisher to well, anything, of course it makes a mess, but it can get right into the brakes, the electricals at the back of the car there. So I'm expecting that he's going to have to be pushed back, and it's still smoking quite heavily. They're going to rock the car backwards and forwards just to try and dissipate the heat, but there's a lot of smoke. But Carlos is still staying in the car. He's not hopped out just yet.
Yeah, that is a very strange situation. They're still trying to cool those rear brakes down a little bit. We've just had a new time for the start of the formation lap, and that's going to be at 2:15 our time, 3:15 in Austria. So we've got a few minutes now, 10 minutes before the formation lap actually gets underway. Rosanna.
Ben, I can smell the brakes on Carlos Sainz's Williams, and I am stationed at pit in. He is at pit exit. The smell is so strong, so it's wafting all the way down the paddock buildings and across to me here at the pit in. And the mechanics are still trying to stop the fire, which seems to be ongoing. They're all gathered around it. Gosh, I'd have to be paid a lot of money to be standing near that car right now. But lots of mechanics trying to work out what to do, and Carlos Sainz still in the car at the moment as they start to push it back down into the pit lane, so reversing him down the fast lane of the pit lane. And Alice, you're talking about all the debris that goes into an F1 car when you extinguish a fire on it or within it. Of course, all that debris is going to be on the pit lane exit as well, so that's going to make it tricky when people are exiting after their stops during the race, when we finally get that race going.
It certainly is. There'll be some marshals down there that will clear that area, but Carlos is being wheeled back, so he's been put up on sort of a plate that wheels them back down, and the mechanics are still running backwards, trying to extinguish the fire and getting fans on that as well to cool the rear of the car down. So it looks like that they're potentially still going to try and make him out, but if they've had a fire around those brakes, I'll be amazed if he gets back out. But everyone else is now waiting patiently on the grid. None of the drivers have hopped out of their cars because they only have 8 minutes until the formation lap is underway, but they'll be taking on some more fluids as well as having an umbrella over the top just to shade them from that quite intense sun.
I think what suggests that there's a wider problem there with those brakes is that it's not uncommon to see brakes catch fire in Formula 1 if a car comes to rest after running for quite a while, but he hasn't been running for quite a while.
Exactly.
He's done one formation lap.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, will have been pushing because they wanted to get his Sainz's radio.
Game over, Carlos. Drop off.
Oh, yeah, I thought that might happen exactly because of that reason. Something else has gone wrong with that car, and I think I'm speculating now, but let's not forget the sequence of events. Stuck on the grid, couldn't get moving, does one formation lap, comes into the pits with his brakes on fire. Looks like brakes issue, doesn't it?
James Vowles is not looking happy. No surprise. Team principal for Williams. This is a tough start to the day for them, and it's been a bit of a tough weekend already for Carlos. There is a chance the other driver, Alex Albon, might get into the points starting in 12th place, but that really is, I don't think I've ever seen it quite like that. As you say, after just one lap, a formation lap. Yes, I've seen them catch fire when they come in after many laps, and there's so much heat created, but to do that after one lap, they clearly had a major problem with it.
100%. Certainly not a good issue down there at Williams, and he's had a tough start, hasn't he, to life at Williams as Carlos Sainz. It just doesn't seem to be going the way he would have hoped it to be going. Albon, he's had a little bit of a struggle this weekend, but nowhere near as much as what Carlos Sainz has been having. But he removes his helmet now, shake of the head, and that's day done quite early on for him.
It is, but As Andrew mentioned earlier, they're running well in the Constructors' Championship, bearing in mind they've had some good results. They are 5th in the 10 constructors at the moment, and they've got a decent gap over the Haas team, which are 6th. They're a long way away from Red Bull, which are 4th. They're sort of a little bit on their own at the moment. But of course, you could see, for example, Haas and Racing Bulls move up that order. So we shall wait and see exactly what happens. But yeah, tough one there for Carlos Sainz.
Ben, it's also a tough one for the other drivers on the grid because this has upset their rhythm. They were all ready for the formation lap. They were dialing themselves in, ready for the start of the race. And I'm thinking of the front row in particular. Lando Norris, who struggled with his starts in the past, and Charles Leclerc there as well. They've got to really dial themselves in and block out all of this distraction. And Alice, it's hot here. It's 29, 30 degrees. There's going to be a lot of heat soak going on. These drivers are going to be really feeling the temperatures.
Yes, they certainly will. They will have a fan that I can see Liam Lawson's got his fan going, visor cracked open under the umbrella. They'll have some fresher fluids, so they'll have obviously a drink in the car, but that's going to have heated up. That's sat, you know, in with amongst the driver and all the hot components, so that water can get warm quite quickly. So Oscar's got his bottle with him, which will be much cooler, fresher fluids, but 100% it upsets your rhythm. But you have to remember it's the same for everybody else on the grid. That adrenaline build up going through that entire process when you leave the grid all the way to then lining up again, you've got to do it all over again. But certainly adrenaline will start to be eking up once again. We've still got 5 minutes until the formation lap gets underway.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to this race getting underway. By the way, of course, don't forget Wimbledon is back this week. Gigi Salmon and Claire McDonald will be here on 5 Live from 12:30 tomorrow with all the latest action on and off court. Alonso?
And I cannot tell you the temperature of the seat is maybe, I don't know, 200 degrees. Copy that.
My goodness, that's
he's got
Fernando.
A hot bottom then.
Yeah, Fernando reporting, and we've got an onboard camera, and he's got his eyes closed at the moment, and it's feeling very, very hot down there for him. Track temperature up to 50 degrees now, so this is going to be a pretty tough one. We shall see how this all goes. We are expecting it to be a 2-stop race, but yeah, the heat may well make the tyres even more difficult to cope with.
Yeah, and what's happening there in the Aston Martin, it's not uncommon in Formula 1 again, a bit like the fires and the brakes. They pack a lot of the electrical components around the seat to keep everything, you know, the weight distribution in the right place, the central gravity as low as possible and so on. And it can end up getting very, very hot. We heard the Mercedes drivers, here's Russell's radio.
Make sure there's plenty of waters for the mechanics. Everyone's dripping.
Yeah, so it's another example of the heat. So you might remember last year the Mercedes drivers would repeatedly complain about the temperature of their seats. So I expect that's what's happening with Alonso. He's just sat still. There's no cooling air going through these cars. Of course, there's no fans or anything like on your road car. There's the sun's very bright and strong. The track temperature is very hot, 50 degrees Celsius. That's soaking up into the car. On top of the engine, well, the engine's not on right now, but you get a lot of heat soak into the cars. And so poor old Fernando Alonso is getting a toasted bottom in the car as a consequence.
And Alex, you know, as a racer, when you've got a helmet on and all the kit on it that you have to wear, and the car's not moving, you're just sitting, you get hotter and hotter, don't you?
You do. There's nothing worse than being sat there. It's better to just go around, at least you get a little bit of a breeze. But as soon as you stop and you're sat, you're 100% right, Ben, it does get really, really warm. And I've had it a couple of times where you're suddenly feeling it's quite hot on my seat, and particularly your back as well. And it's not a nice feeling. So he'll be wishing that time hurries up in the next 2.5 minutes is what he needs. But once he gets going, it should be all right. He'll get some air through the parts of the car, and of course then he'll be taking his mind off it. He'll be full concentration mode into the race.
There's a huge amount of excitement out amongst the crowds. Really tremendous support as ever for all sorts of drivers, massively for Max Verstappen as ever here in Austria. Lando Norris, we're just having a quick look, starting from that pole position. Now they are beginning to get ready once again. We've got just over 2 minutes until they go on to their formation lap. but around the track there are so many people just getting excited, getting buzzed up, and the fact that this race hasn't quite got underway has just got everybody even more excited. But as you said, it might lead to more mistakes because it has thrown everybody just a little bit. You're not expecting this, you think, right, we're just going to do a formation lap and go, and you have to back off, think about it, getting too hot on the cars, then hopefully we'll get another formation lap nice and clean and then get the race underway.
That's often what we see, isn't it, when it comes down to race restarts. But the mechanics, as George has already touched on, it's a hot one for them because they have to wear fireproof suits as well when they're stood on the grid alongside the car. So it's a tough one for them. Temperatures well over track temperatures well over 50 degrees, air temperatures 30 degrees, so it's a hot one for them. Plus they've got to stand by the tyre warmers, the car's hot, so it's a tough one. Yuki Tsunoda's putting his gloves back on. That's one thing I used to like doing, is just taking your gloves off and putting them at the top of the cockpit. Any air that you can get anywhere on your body was always welcoming. And I've just seen that the race will be reduced in distance by 1 lap to take into account the extra formation lap that is now needed. So instead of 71 laps of racing, we'll have 70.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and it does make sense. That's often the way if they have to do an extra formation lap, because of course the fuel on board would originally have been for that 71 laps, but now there's an extra formation lap, so yeah, they've reduced it to 70 laps. The mechanics are now clearing the grid and all the drivers are preparing for the formation lap getting underway in just a few seconds time. McLaren cars looking very quick in a straight line yesterday, by the way, and that speed that they had in a straight line definitely gives them that little edge as well, I would think, on the opening lap, as long as they get off the line well with a good start. Both Ferraris will be on the inside line though, so that will be fascinating to see how Charles Leclerc goes up towards the first corner. They climb uphill. We're just about to see them go on the formation lap. There we go. It was a fairly good practice start from both Lando and Charles Leclerc there.
It was. Lando's mechanics pushed him back slightly on his grid slot, and you probably think, well, why are they doing that? Surely he wants to be lined up perfectly, but that's just purely to just lay a little bit of rubber down, clear the area. Everyone seems to be moving away. We're just waiting for the final car of Nico Hülkenberg to move forward. And
he's not yet.
Oh, he has. He was teasing us. He was making us stress. But everyone in the top 10 appears to be on the medium tyre, all apart from Pierre Gasly in 10th. He's on a soft tyre. As well on the soft tyre is Isaac Hadjar, Franco Colapinto, Ollie Behrman and Nico Hülkenberg, which takes up our final spot on the grid.
That's interesting, yes. I did wonder if we see some from further back on the soft tyre. The fact that Pierre Gasly, starting in 10th place, has gone for the soft tyre is quite interesting. Very unlikely, especially on full fuel, that you're going to get more than about 15 laps. Less, probably 12 laps out of the soft tyre, but sometimes it can work for you if you get a good first run and then, for example, there's an early safety car.
Yes, certainly, and I think maybe that could be a sign from Alpine thinking, well, we're going to try and make our way forward on the softer compound tyre because we're going to struggle with the race pace. So obviously with the softer compound of tyre, you can have a better launch off the grid, you can have better grip in the early laps. But trust me, that will soon drop away, particularly in these much warmer temperatures, which Piastri said should, in theory, favour them even more.
Okay, well, let's see how that all goes. George Russell, a winner of a last race here, but Max Verstappen, a multiple winner of this race. Lando Norris has never won this one, but he's had some good results. He got his first ever podium here in Austria back in 2020. Can he now take his first win at this event? We shall find out pretty soon because he's just getting into position. All of the cars have made it round, I think, on the formation lap this time. We haven't got any other delays. So let's go down to Rosanna before they actually kick off for the start of this race.
Oh, the excitement is building. The fans are packing out the grandstands and it is still incredibly hot. 30 degrees air temperature, 50 degrees track temperature. The sun went behind a cloud for about 10 seconds, which gave us some respite, but it is out again and it is very, very hot, Ben.
It is hot and we are building up to an incredibly important start for the Austrian Grand Prix. Can Lando Norris, on pole position, who's been so dominant in all the sessions so far, can he go on and take the start and take the win here and get those vital points when he is 22 points behind his teammate who is right behind him, Oscar Piastri, starting in third. But he's also got the battle on with the Ferraris. He's got Charles Leclerc alongside and Lewis Hamilton close behind as well. We are getting ready for the Austrian Grand Prix to get underway. Lights out, away we go, and it's a good start from Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc's going for it, but Lando's able to shut the door and then open back up again. And in fact, Piastri going around the outside of Leclerc. He goes into second place. Great move by Oscar Piastri. That's exactly what he would have wanted. And now we've got McLaren 1-2, the two who are fighting in the championship. And already Piastri's going to have a little look to see if he can go around the outside into turn 3. Doesn't make it. There's a look up further back. Verstappen is spun. Verstappen has been spun by contact with another car, and up front we've still got the battle between the two McLarens as Charles Leclerc is holding on to third place and George Russell fighting with Lewis Hamilton.
That was Antonelli who just locked up the brakes and steamed all the way down the inside and hit Max Verstappen, and that'll be game over, I would have thought, for Max Verstappen, and certainly that would have broken the front suspension at his safety car, Ben. That was a bit of a desperate move for Kimi Antonelli, who was just way too late on the brakes, and everyone now hits the anchors to slow down. George Russell actually got the jump on Lewis Hamilton, but Lewis snuck back past and he is out. Max Verstappen is out of the race.
He is out. Max Verstappen's getting out of his car. As you say, Kimi Antonelli, damage done to his car. It's all over for him as well. He's still sitting in his car at the moment. Front wheel damage on both sides, and Max getting out. And, well, we will get a replay in a moment, but that was not Verstappen's mistake. It was Kimi Antonelli coming down the inside lane. We've seen it before into turn 3 with drivers doing something similar, but this is a tough one for Max Verstappen now. Having started down in 7th, it's always a risk when you don't get a good qualifying. And remember, part of him not getting good qualifying was because there was a yellow flag came out when Pierre Gasly spun and he had to back off. And he's just having a chat now with Kimi Antonelli, trying to ask him what happened.
I'm just trying to work out the body language. Antonelli's kept his helmet on as he approached Max Verstappen. Max took his off and kind of said, well, body language of saying, well, what was that? And Antonelli kind of made a gesture with his hands that he maybe got a little bit of oversteer, so we're going to have a look again. But from my point of view, it just looked initially that Antonelli purely just braked too late, locked up the front, and then he was a passenger. When you have a lock-up like that, you need to release the brakes, but of course he's got a whole host of cars in front of him, so he wasn't able to do that.
We're going to have another look at the start here once again, and it was a great start by Lando Norris, but also by Oscar Piastri.
It was. He braved around the outside. He had a bit of help from his teammate, actually. Charles Leclerc got slightly boxed on the inside by Lando Norris, and we've got a rear view looking back, and actually the second phase of the start was decent from Charles Leclerc, but he was boxed by Norris, and then Piastri said, well, thank you very much, I'll take that. A few cars in the background taking to the outside. Now, it's going to be, there's a gap between the top 6 cars, and Antonelli does he locks the rear brakes and then locks the front brakes. He just braked too late. He purely just braked too late, and he sailed on through on board with Max Verstappen, who was looking to go to the outside of Lewis Hamilton, turns into the corner, and there's that thud.
Oh, we'll listen to Verstappen's radio.
I got hit like crazy. Idiots.
It was a strange incident, because actually when Kimi Antonelli came in so late, you'd have thought he would have hit cars that were immediately ahead of him, but he didn't. He avoided them, but went far further and took out Verstappen, who was about 3-4 places ahead of him when they went in there.
Sorry about that. Locked the rear. Sorry.
He did lock the rear, but I think that he just braked too late. He did. So he braked too late, swerved to avoid hitting. I think that was Liam Lawson and Bortoletto in front of him. And then in the process, that kicked the rear out. Then he hit the brakes even harder because he knew that he needed to slow the car down. And then he was into the side of Max Verstappen.
Safety car is about to end. One of the big gains is Alex Albon, who's up into 7th. Isaac Hadjar is going very slowly at this point.
He's been in the pits, so I don't know if he had some damage to his car. He started on the soft tyre, and he's now changed to the medium set of tyres, but I don't know whether that possibly he would have had a little bit of damage out there.
Right, okay. Well, we're getting ready for the race to get underway once again. Alex Albon, as I mentioned, he's gained well. He's gone from 12th to 7th. Gabriel Bortoleto is still in 8th place. Liam Lawson dropped out a bit, and he was partly involved in that incident that we were talking about. And Gasly as well, yes. Pierre Gasly has moved up to 6th place, having started in 10th. So it's been a good gain for Pierre Gasly. Green flag, we're back to racing. And Lando Norris launches again. Oscar Piastri in 2nd place. Charles Leclerc in 3rd. And Lewis Hamilton in 4th. George Russell was really fighting with Lewis Hamilton at the start, but is he going to be able to maintain it now? We shall see. Russell in 5th place, and it's Gasly behind. Could be some vital points for the Alpine team if Gasly can get this kind of result, but of course it is very, very early days. Alex Albon doing a good job at this point as well. Bortoleto, Lawson and Fernando Alonso also up into that top 10. Right now, Norris is defending from Piastri.
He is, but Charles Leclerc is all on the back of Oscar Piastri, and also Lewis Hamilton's under immense pressure from George Russell as well. There's a wheel-to-wheel racing between, that looked like Colapinto and Behrman. Those two are on the soft tyre. Gasly's up there as well on the soft tyre. George Russell looks down the inside of Lewis Hamilton, just avoids making contact with the Ferrari.
Oh my goodness, that was close. The two former teammates, and Lewis Hamilton's having to defend hard here from George Russell. This is the fight for 4th position, and behind them Pierre Gasly's not very far behind because they're almost slowing each other down, but Hamilton's holding on to that 4th place for the moment. Meanwhile, Lando Norris is making a little bit of a break now away from Oscar Piastri, but Charles Leclerc is kind of keeping with them, whereas Hamilton's dropping back a little bit more. Just taking a look at that other incident I think that we saw just a moment ago, Colapinto. Yeah, a little bit of contact.
Yeah, so then Behrman had to go over that sausage curb on the exit there, but DRS was not enabled that lap. It is now enabled, so out goes those flaps. The only person that won't have it at the moment scanning through the field, that'll be Lando Norris, and Oscar Piastri was 8 tenths. 9 tenths actually went on the back straight. He's now gained 3 tenths.
Just close the door on the braking.
George Russell complaining that Lewis Hamilton closed the door. We haven't seen anything too naughty yet, but of course they will always put this out. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen walking back into the paddock. What a disappointing day for Max Verstappen, and it will be the first time this year that he has not been able to score points.
Yeah, it's just, see, weekend goes back to worse for Max Verstappen. Unlucky with the yellow flag yesterday in qualifying, and then doesn't even complete a racing lap here today.
So Norris does not have a second gap over Piastri, so that means Piastri's got the DRS, and the DRS gives you a 7/10 of a second per lap advantage. It's not that easy to overtake. It's easy to get alongside or get in position to overtake, but actually pulling the overtake off is tricky around this track. That's how the Norris-Verstappen incident at the end of the race last year happened, but it means that Piastri is likely to stick with Norris for quite some time unless his tyres overheat.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Also, another aspect, we've been talking about Pierre Gasly getting a good position. He's up in the 6th, but remember, he is on the soft tyres, as you mentioned earlier, Alice. I wonder how deep he will be able to go into this race. He won't be able to go as far as those around him who are on the medium compound tyre.
Yeah, certainly. And actually, I'm just looking at his lap
look at
time.
Piastri having a little look down the inside of Norris there. Wasn't quite a move, but he was having a think.
He was trying to feint him into making a mistake, Lando Norris, but wasn't able to do so at this point. So that was the final DRS zone, at least on this lap. So he's just going to have to wait now until he gets on the exit of turn 10. But just back to Gasly. He is actually the slowest of those in the top 10 at the moment, so potentially already that soft tyre could be falling away for him.
Oscar Piastri, like Max Verstappen until today, they both have scored points in all of the races so far this season, in the Grand Prix so far this season, but Max now not scoring today. Let's see what Oscar Piastri can do, because he is definitely keeping the pressure on his teammate, and he's just set the new fastest lap on 109.340. He had a little wobble coming out of turn 1, but he dealt with it fine, and they are easing away from Charles Leclerc, aren't they?
They are. 2 seconds is the gap between Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri. So he's already lost DRS. You've got to be within 1 second to have DRS, and he doesn't have that. Lewis Hamilton then 1.5 seconds further back to his teammate, but he's got a mirror full of...
Your call on the racing situation.
And that was a radio call to Oscar Piastri What call is he going to make? I could probably take a guess. He's going to go for it.
Well, he's certainly racing at the moment, but of course he's got to think about, do I go for it or do I look after the tyres? There has been the incident between Colapinto and Behrman has been noted. There are no penalties as far as we know just yet, but that has been looked into. Meanwhile, further down the order, of course, Isaac Hadjar right down at the back at this stage, but we've had 3 cars out of this race already. Carlos Sainz never even made the start, and we've lost Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli after their incident at turn 3 on the opening lap. Now it's another new fastest lap, this time for Lando, who's set the pace just a fraction faster than Piastri.
Stretching his legs a little bit, and that's in that middle sector where he's had the advantage over Oscar Piastri. But Oscar's got to make a decision here, because these hot temperatures, much hotter than we were running yesterday and the day before, the more he sits within a second, 2 seconds in that dirty air behind his teammate, that's going to really play into degradation in his tyres. There's not a lot of lateral load around this track, and the deg is mainly thermal. We've got the hard braking, hard acceleration around the circuit, but also the heat from the back of the car, and he's stayed constantly at the last sort of 3, 4, 5 laps easily within 1 second, and the closer and closer he gets, that's going to really affect the degradation on his tyres. So will we potentially see if he can get any closer, and will he take the opportunity to maybe go, do you know what, I've got a gap behind, I'm going to drop off slightly from Lando, look after my tyres, and potentially attack later on in the race?
Absolutely, that may well happen. We are very much in the early stages so far on the medium compounds, as you say, for these front runners. Top 5 drivers all on the medium compound. Leclerc in 3rd place, Lewis Hamilton in 4th. Ferrari on target to score some useful points here today if they can continue like this. George Russell, a consistent points finisher so far this year for Mercedes. He's in 5th place, but of course we've lost the other Mercedes from this race now, with Antonelli going out very early on, and Albon has just got past Gasly. So Alex Albon has moved up into 6th place, bearing in mind that he qualified down in 12th position, his 2nd lowest grid of this season, and he's had a couple of non-finishes in the last 2 races, but Albon actually is in a good position right now, and this could help Williams with that 5th place they've got in Constructors' Championship to continue holding that space.
He certainly will. Oscar's just set the fastest of anybody in the middle sector, and I've just taken a look at the speed traps here, and with that advantage of having DRS, 16 kilometers an hour is the difference between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Piastri being faster. It was a nice late on the brakes move. Simple stuff for Alex Albon, no defence really from Pierre Gasly, and Piastri has just set another fastest lap of the race.
So do we think that Gasly's tyres are beginning to give up now that they are the soft tyres, or was he just not expecting that move? Because Albon came from quite a long way back, went for the late move, and Gasly wasn't even thinking of defending, was he?
I think Gasly, actually, that last lap, he is the slowest person on track. He's the only driver in the 112s.
Piastri is getting very close to Lando Norris again, and Norris almost having to take a slightly defensive position then as they came down towards turn 4. They're plunging downhill. You're listening on board right now with Oscar Piastri as he chases after Lando Norris, and we'll see.
Norris just made a mistake there in turn 6. He was well wide of the apex, so that should give Piastri a chance to be a little bit closer as he comes onto the pit straight in the first DRS zone now.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on this. So they're coming down through the last 2 corners. He is close here, and they're coming into the DRS zone. Actually, Norris comes out of that very well. He had a good exit out of turn 10, and I don't think it's close enough here for Oscar Piastri, but it's the next straight, which is often the place to really go for the attack. They both come out close. He is close.
He is close as he's ever been. He's going to have a real good chance here, Ben, because Lando made a mistake on the exit of turn 1.
DRS in play, and Piastri goes to the outside. Oscar Piastri goes in front. Lando Norris will try and cut back on the exit of the corner. He tries to, but Piastri's got a good exit. They're almost side by side again as they come up over the hill. And now with Lando with DRS, he's got it back on the inside, but Piastri will try around the outside into turn 4. No, it is Lando Norris who's got back in front, but he runs. Well, I thought he was running a bit wide, but he didn't. Piastri has now settled back into second place. What about down the inside? No, Norris gives him space. My goodness, they are racing clean, but this could so easily go wrong.
That is brave stuff to go down the inside at turn 6. The track falls away. I actually think that Oscar was going to have a go down the outside into turn 4, but he had a small lock-up, so that hampered him trying to hang it round the outside. So 7/10 is the gap now as they're going to cross the finish line. So Oscar is not as close as he was before, but he's still within DRS. DRS flies open as they go across the line. Let's have a look at the gap as they enter into turn 1, and on the exit it's 6/10, so it wasn't last. He needed half a second, really. You need to be 4/10 on the exit of turn 1 to have any chance of really attacking into turn 3.
Yeah, and he's not there at this point to do that. We'll see it on the exit of turn 3 whether he gets a little closer under DRS again. But my goodness, that was some close racing on that previous lap. The battle on between the two McLaren teammates. They made contact, remember, last time out in Canada when Lando made an error. He went for a move that really was not possible. He went down the inside when Piastri had already closed the gap, and Lando went out of that race. Meanwhile, there's some other great battles going on. Bortoleto having a little fight here with Gasly and just trying to make it through, and let's just see whether he's going to be able to hold this.
I think he will, but Gasly's going to try it around the outside of turn 6. Thinks better of it, but Bortoleto has a bit of understeer because of the tighter line, but he's gained the place. So Bortoleto up into 7th place, and I really do think that Gasly now is struggling a lot on those soft tyres. Colapinto, though, has made his way slightly further up. So actually, the sister car seems to be doing a fairly decent job, as in the pits now does come Pierre Gasly. He's had enough of this soft tyre.
No surprise. So yeah, Gasly in the pits. We'll see how this works out for him and whether he goes on to the medium or the hard compound tyre. Now Hulkenberg into the pits as well, but he's been right down at the back of the field, of course. Meanwhile, Piastri still chasing Lando Norris, but not able to find a way through. And Gasly now just having a new set of tyres fitted, and he's on his way back out of the pits. Lando Norris on lap 13 out of 70. Still very early days, but the gap very close with his teammate Oscar Piastri. They had that one way then the other. Piastri briefly in front, but not officially, of course, because he didn't actually cross the line in front. Lando Norris was able to get back ahead of him. In terms of the pit window for these drivers on the medium compound tyres, we are expecting them to be stopping perhaps within 5 or 6 laps or a little bit further, and particularly for these leaders, they may go a bit deeper into the race before they make their first pit stops.
It just seems that McLarens have just got a better pace, which is what we expected, especially in the warmer conditions over their rivals. Looking back now, the gap between Leclerc and Piastri is 4.6 seconds. Lewis Hamilton's then a further 4.8 seconds adrift of his teammate. Bortoleto has well, I was going to say he's got past Albon, but Albon has now decided to come into the pits, so starting to drop down the order. That then promotes Ocon and Stroll into the top 10.
Yeah, it's interesting Albon's made that pretty early stop, and whether that's partly the battle with Gasly, we shall see, but Albon now will be coming back out in just a moment. Colapinto, a bit of a slow stop as well, 3.9 seconds.
Yeah, it's early for the mediums on Albon's Williams, but I suspect he's trying to cover himself from the Gasly undercut, keep track position, and then hopefully try for what would be a slightly longer than expected second stint.
Just having a little look once again with Ollie Behrman battling with Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly having made that pit stop, and Ollie Behrman doing a pretty good job there.
Yeah, he managed to get the move, make it stick, but the McLarens are close.
Here comes Piastri again, having a look, but he's decided not to go for it there as they come up into turn 1, but he will be in a very good DRS zone this time, although I have to say Lando Norris dealt with turn 1 extremely well, but how close can Piastri get as they come down the longest straight? The DRS is available, but he doesn't quite get alongside.
There must have been a mistake for Lando Norris at some point along this lap, but 3/10 is the gap now between Piastri and Norris. They're going to have that run down into turn 4. It's going to be hard for Oscar to go down the inside. Lando's got it covered. He's got to brave it round the outside. Not quite close enough from Oscar Piastri.
This is great racing. Absolutely fabulous that both of the McLaren teammates are pushing so hard at this stage. Piastri feels he's got the speed that he can get in front and pull away, but Lando Norris is not going to let that happen. If he can possibly prevent him getting past, and Lando is doing that extremely well at this stage. It's all clean racing, and he's holding on to the lead, but Piastri's keeping the attack underway.
What's interesting, I think, is that we're seeing quite a sort of, it's like a bit of the pattern of the season in a way in this battle. Lando's making mistakes. We didn't see what it was on that previous lap, but he must have done something for Piastri to close in that much. And it happened again, didn't it, Alice, with him running out of turn one on the lap where they did pass and then repass each other. Whereas Piastri's doing what he did with Verstappen, for example, in Miami, keeping it calm, keeping it cool. He'll only go for the move when he really thinks it's definitely on.
However, Piastri has had his team on the radio warning him about the temperature of his gearbox. Apparently it's starting to overheat, and that's what we said about sitting in that dirty air behind his teammate Lando Norris, and the temperatures that we're seeing here. Okay, we've raced in hotter conditions. Just hear from Leclerc.
We need Leica, all corners, Charles, every lap.
That's what I am doing, Brian. That is what I'm doing.
So he's struggling out there with his car, it seems, for Charles Leclerc, and he says, well, that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm driving it in the way that I should be doing it, lifting and coasting, basically. So, and there was the mistake from Lando Norris. So he and again, that was twice in a row. So he went wide at turn 9 and then went wide into the gravel at turn 10. These are the mistakes that Andrew was talking about, and it looks like it's day done for Alex Albon.
Both Williams are out of this race by the look of it. We lost Carlos Sainz before the race even started, and now Alex Albon, who'd actually been doing really well, moved up into the points. He's out of the race as well. So whatever it is about the way they've set these cars up, it has not worked this weekend, and that is bitterly disappointing for the Williams team. Meanwhile, for McLaren, still such a little gap, 0.6 of a second for the race lead between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. It's come down to under half a second now in a DRS zone, but it's not quite close enough. Let's listen to Norris.
Lando, opportunity, make turn 6 apex. It makes it harder for the other car.
Basically, hit your apexes, mate. Come on.
Interesting. You love turn 6 here. You say it's one of the toughest, don't you, Alice?
It is, because you get drawn into carrying more speed in, but it drops away just after the apex, and basically he's allowing the cleaner air to hit the front wing of Oscar Piastri, who is making the apex. As we're going to see a replay of Yuki Tsunoda, dives down the inside. Does he make it stick? Down the inside. Oh, that's a Lance Stroll. And was there contact? There was, and that'll be a damaged front wing for Yuki Tsunoda.
Yes, and Stroll had to run wide as a result of that, so will that be looked into? I don't know. At the moment, Yuki Tsunoda is up into 10th position, having started all the way down in 18th. It's the only Red Bull in this car, of course, in this race, and that incident has been noted so far. Whether there is going to be a decision, we shall see a little bit deeper into this race. But Tsunoda, potentially in the points. George Russell now will be heading into the pits. He is running in 5th position on those medium compound tyres, and he will be coming in shortly.
Let's have a look then, shall we? If Lando Norris makes the apex for turn 6, and yeah, I think he did that time round, so bleeds out to the gravel. I've got a nice healthy lead, so Oscar's in quite a nice position in terms of he's got no trouble from behind whatsoever. He can just full focus on attacking his teammate, and once again Lando kicks up some of the gravel. He really is wringing the neck of that McLaren, which will be enjoyment for Oscar Piastri, who's sat watching his teammates squirming on the exit of these corners. But Oscar was warned about the temperature of his gearbox, but he doesn't seem to be doing too much about it in terms of pulling out of the dirty air or backing off. He still feels that he can get past Lando Norris in the next several laps. And interesting, we're in that kind of window now for these medium tyres to come in to be changed, as George Russell starts to drop down the order as he's come into the pits.
So yeah, it's a good stop for George Russell. He's back on his way once again as the two McLarens continue their battle. Close and tight. Yuki Tsunoda also into the pits. There is a chance that Tsunoda could maybe score some points today. A stop time of 2.4 seconds is efficient for Red Bull. It's not the fastest we've seen this year. Ferrari have been doing the fastest times at 2.0 seconds. Let's listen to Norris radio.
So Lando, the gap to Bortoletto is 20.3, so we're happy to pit. If we're going to get passed by Oscar, we would pit before him. If not, we just keep going.
Well, let's see what happens, because they are still so close in this race right now. Lando Norris, they were talking about the gap to Gabriel Bortoletto at 20.6 seconds at this stage. And George Russell, of course, now has just made a pit stop as well.
And a wide moment there for Oscar Piastri on the exit of the turn 1 on the curb. And actually, that would be a nice gap for, well, either one of these McLarens to slot into. So pit stop window average time lost during a green flag is 20.3 seconds, so he's kind of within that, but in terms of the gap to Bortoletto. But Bortoletto is 11.1 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Of course, that's nice clean air. Oscar Piastri goes on the inside, nearly locks up and makes contact nearly with Lando Norris. That's down at turn 4.
He locked up, as you say, and those fronts may be a bit flat-spotted now. They will not be ideal, having locked up like that. Thank goodness there was no contact. Norris is being told to make the pit stop. Now, of course, in a way, it's an advantage to have the first of the stops, because you then get fresh tyres. You're able to do a couple of quick laps. This will be interesting. And actually, to have locked your front tyres just before you now have to go on a key lap, this is very, very tricky. Into the pits comes Lando Norris.
So these next few laps, sorry, Rosa, are going to be so crucial into who's going to come out on top here.
And Lando Norris is already out. It's a 3.1 stop time, so actually fairly slow in Formula 1 terms, but he's back out and he's going to see where that places him. Obviously, they told him that he would come out near Bortoletto, but Norris is going to, I think, come out in front of the Sauber driver, who's just coming up to turn 1 now, and I think McLaren have timed that to perfection. He is going to come out in front of the Brazilian driver.
He does, you're absolutely right. Yeah, Bortoletto doing a great job this weekend so far. Let's hope that he can continue this, because he's looking for his first points in Formula 1 in the green Sauber, but will he be able to? He won't be able to stay with the pace that Lando Norris is going to be doing now on the hard compound tyres. Piastri's radio.
Let's see your pace in Prix now.
Yeah, okay, I have a flat spot.
Understood. Let's see how the pace is.
Yeah, as we said, he has a flat spot. We're going to look back. We're just going to have a quick look at what happened on that instant where he locked the fronts.
I think initially he just braked too late. I actually don't think he was trying to go for a move, because he was too far back. And we're seeing a replay now of Lando coming into the pits, perfect on his marks. Was it a clear? Slow on that front left. I actually didn't catch the pit stop time there.
3.1, I think it was.
So yeah, that's not a great pit stop in terms of McLaren pace. But having a little look at Oscar Piastri's pace now, he's 110.6. So. Of course, that won't be nowhere near matching the fastest lap because of degradation. He doesn't have the aid of DRS, but we'll keep you up to date with the pace of Lando Norris.
That spot for data looks okay to continue. Let me know.
Yes, not pleasant, but it's okay.
He's coping with it, Piastri, at the moment. Bortoletto has just come into the pits, and that's a decent stop by the Sauber team. Yeah, they've done 2.4 seconds. Funnily enough, his teammate is having a little battle with Ollie Behrman as they go through the first corner, and he's just managed to get past, and they've both come out virtually alongside Bortoletto as he's come out of the pit, so it's very close. You've got the two Saubers running quite close together on track, but of course Hulkenberg hasn't come back in. He made a very early stop, didn't he? And so Hulkenberg actually going quite well at this point. He's ahead of his teammate now.
He is, and I'm just keeping an eye on these sectors, Ben, in terms of pace between Piastri and Norris as Behrman's in that sandwich, that Sauber sandwich, and looking at it now, we're just waiting for Norris to cross the line. So last time round, 110.9 for Oscar Piastri, and Lando Norris a 109.9, so 1 second quicker than his teammate at the moment on this fresher set, or this better set of hard tyres.
Yeah, which does make sense. You would expect that the fresh tyres are going to be worth good lap time. Isaac Hadjar is who we're hearing at the moment. We're listening to Piastri's radio.
Question. Better to be 4 seconds behind Lando with more delta, or 1.5 behind?
4 with delta.
So they're talking strategy, aren't they, here? Just explain that one to us, Alice.
So he wants to have a bit of a free air to close that gap back, to manage his tyres better, because if he came out 1.5 seconds behind, of course then he's going to struggle with looking after these tyres. So he wants that gap, wants that clean air. So I would expect as well, Andrew, we're going to see him continue to circulate at this pace for now.
Yeah, what I was basically asking was pit now and have only a 2-lap tyre offset advantage, or give it a bit more time, lose more time on track, but have better tyres than Norris to come back at him with.
Yeah.
And he thinks that it's better to lose a little bit more time, but have a few more laps of extra tyre grip to attack better when he does catch him.
Yeah, and it does make sense to me, that does. Listen to Norris radio.
And Lando doing a good job. Oscar's pace hasn't really picked up.
Music to Lando's ears, but he's got to be wise. He's going to know that he's not come into the pits just yet. Lando Norris has got still a decent gap to Lewis Hamilton, so he's not going to be stressing his tyres too much. And just as we say that, Piastri's been called into the pits, so he's just gone through the final part of sector 2, and he'll be coming into the pits, and it'll be crucial to get this stop nailed for his McLaren team.
Absolutely, and he needs a good stop, and then we'll see how close to Lando Norris he is when he comes back out. So the McLaren team are getting ready, and in comes Oscar Piastri. Rosanna, it's going to be an interesting one, this one.
Yeah, hits his pit limiter, 80 kilometres an hour for this pit lane here in Austria, and he zooms into the pit box. It's the first pit you come to in the pit lane. Mechanics are there, as you say, they were getting ready, hard tyre ready for the Australian driver, and he's back out. And again, a fairly slow stop, 3.4. It was 3.1 for his teammate, even slower for McLaren. Is it the temperature maybe? Sometimes we see mechanics struggling a little bit, and sometimes some of the kit struggling in this heat.
It looks like, again, it was the front left for Oscar Piastri that was slow, and that was the same. That was a slow one for Lando Norris.
I just want to throw something out there on strategy as well. Ferrari has stayed out so far. Charles Leclerc was about 6 seconds behind Piastri when he just came into the pits then. I wonder whether Ferrari are going to try a one-stop, because they've been very good on tyres so far this year, and they were asking Leclerc to do a lot of conservation, lift and coast earlier on that radio message between Charles Leclerc and his engineer Brian Botsi. So that's not just to save fuel, although it is, but it's also to keep the car's heat under control. And then we're just seeing a replay of Piastri's pit stop, slow on the left front, which has delayed him, so that's going to make catching Norris all the harder. So let's just keep an eye on those Ferraris. It's also worth pointing out as well, as a very good fight. Oh, here comes Charles Leclerc. There's me saying nonsense at all.
No, it's not nonsense, but he is coming in, you're right, Andrew. And I did wonder whether he was going to stay out for that much longer, but you're right, he is coming in now, Charles Leclerc. So brief leader, and it means that now Lewis Hamilton becomes the brief leader. Well, presumably I say brief leader, we'll find out, but Hamilton is now leading this race as Charles Leclerc makes his way. That was 2.3 seconds, not bad. We have seen Ferrari go quicker than that, but it's certainly better than we've just seen from McLaren on the pit stops. And Charles Leclerc just about to come back out onto the circuit behind Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso. So Lawson now moves up to the 4th place.
Is he letting me by or what?
Yes, but you need to get into DRS.
So that's Bortoletto asking whether his teammate Nico Hülkenberg is letting him by, and apparently he's being told he is about to. They are running 11th and 12th at this stage.
And it's serendipity that Charles Leclerc's come out behind Lawson and Alonso, because I was going to bring that battle up. They've been nose to tail for the entire race, less than a second between them, and I wonder what they're going to do on their strategy. But they've made really good progress so far in 5th and 6th places for Lawson and Alonso from their starting positions. Here's Hamilton's radio. Yeah, he's box.
Yeah, he's being told he's going to make his pit stop now as well. So Lewis Hamilton, who is currently leading this, and meanwhile Bortoletto trying to squeeze through this little group of cars, but he wants to get up behind his teammate, and once he's just gone past Lance Stroll, so they are now running 10th and 11th, those two. Into the pits comes Lewis Hamilton, and that was a decent stop, 2.2 seconds, very similar.
That was a very impressive stop, nice and clean there from the Ferrari team. And actually, just going back to Bortoletto, he's kind of getting screwed over a little bit by being in this gaggle of cars. He kind of does need his teammate to free him up and allow him to go. As riding on board with Charles Leclerc, DRS is wide open, tucked up right behind Alonso, and this should be a simple move down the inside, and it is.
Yeah, and Fernando Alonso doesn't fight it too hard because he hasn't come into the pits yet, so he's not made a change of tyres, nor has Liam Lawson, who is now up in 3rd place. Well done to him in the Racing Bulls, but how this will work on different strategy, we shall have to wait and see. Lance Stroll has just made a pit stop. So let's just confirm, it is Lando Norris who is leading this race. He now has a 6-second lead over his teammate Oscar Piastri. That's a much much bigger lead than we had in the earlier stages. The Ferraris are still in good shape, but just bear in mind, at the start of this race, we lost Max Verstappen from the race. He's fine, he's healthy, but unfortunately an incident with Antonelli means that Max Verstappen is not scoring any points. Meanwhile, we're just having a quick look at Bortoleto, having some fun out there. He's currently in 10th position, and he started in 8th place on the grid, and Gabriel Bortoleto doing a fine job so far, still behind his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, who is currently in 9th place. Piastri Radio.
Let's get feedback from the pit wall. The manoeuvre in turn 4 with the front lockup was too marginal. We can't do that again.
So basically, too much risk taken, and it was. They're saying that could have easily been contact, and it nearly was contact. And of course, they don't want either of their cars to be out of the race. They had that happen, didn't they, last time out in Canada? As Liam Lawson, he's just lost a place now to Charles Leclerc, who's on a much fresher set of tyres. Lawson, as you touched on, Ben, yet to box, but he's got Alonso now. His mirror's full of the Aston Martin. So looking out as well between Norris and Piastri, they're back into their positions they were before they pitted, and the gap between the two of them is 6.5 seconds at the moment.
Okay, we shall see how this all develops. Lawson doing a good job so far, but whether this different strategy will work, we'll see. His best finish so far has been 8th place in Monaco. That's his best performance ever so far in Formula 1, that 8th place. Can he do better than that this time? We're just having a quick look again at Gabriel Bortoleto, who's been making some moves. And yeah, that was a straightforward pass for Bortoleto on the inside down into turn 3. So Lewis Hamilton still running well at this stage, but he's got to try and get past Lawson. Bortoleto now ahead of Hülkenberg, so they are now 8th and 9th. Isaac Hadjar has just come into the pit, so he's going to drop down from 10th place. That brings Pierre Gasly back up into 10th position at this stage. And then the two Haas cars, they often race well, the Haas cars, if they don't qualify so well. Ollie Behrman's running in 11th and Esteban Ocon in 12th, so maybe there's still a chance for them to score some points for the team. We'll find out. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton is about to find a way past Lawson, but he was actually having to clip the grass at one stage. He goes around the outside through the challenging turn 6, and he does make it work.
Yeah, neat move by Lewis Hamilton. Lawson didn't give him much room there, did he, on the run, which counts as turn 5. Whether it's a corner, we've had that discussion earlier on in the weekend. Maybe not so much, but Lewis Hamilton's seeing a little bit more comfortable this weekend, as there's a late dive down the inside. Fernando Alonso, who actually has to run wide at turn 1, and then on board with Ollie Behrman, has a lock-up. And you can hear how aggressive that sausage curb on the outside there, which we heard from James Vowles earlier, saying it can really damage the floors on these cars. But unfortunately for him, both his drivers are out of the race, retiring with mechanical issues.
Now, Oscar Piastri has set fastest lap, but he is 6.4 seconds behind the race leader.
I've moved crazy. I'm about to spin every corner.
Pierre Gasly not very happy with the way things are going. He's done 17 laps on a set of hards, because remember, he started on the softs and then came in a little early, like some of the other drivers, but he's not very happy with the grip he's got right now. And Tsunoda's just lost another place. Actually, he's down in 14th position right now, battling away with Franco Colapinto. And the two Haas cars are swapping, I believe, as well, as Tsunoda now having another little look. Oh, there is contact with Colapinto. Oh, we got yellow flag, track hazard. But Colapinto has got going again.
He has. He will continue, but I expect some damage on both cars. That was front left wheel, right rear contact for Colapinto, and I don't really think that move was on from Tsunoda.
Yeah, I think Tsunoda's going to get a penalty for that. I just want to bring up Lawson and Alonso again. They're still out there. They haven't pitted. They're still nose to tail. Alonso's been right up the back of Lawson's car all race, so he's dropped a little bit out of the DRS now. I think they're going for a one-stop, those two, so let's keep an eye on them.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, because we were looking at a one-stop. We're just seeing a replay of that incident. Let's take another look at this, Alice, with Colapinto, the contact from Tsunoda.
Colapinto gave him room, actually. He saw him coming. It was a late move down the inside from Yuki Tsunoda, who has actually come into the pits now. He's getting a front wing change by his team. He's got a brand new set of medium tyres on. They had a little look around on that front suspension as well. So that gained him nothing at all. Actually, he lost a lot. He wasn't going to gain much they were fighting for 13th place. So it was a bit of a pointless move, really, Andrew.
Yeah, I think we're watching the last 14 races of Yuki Tsunoda's Formula 1 career at the moment, probably, because I think there's no question Red Bull will drop him at the end of this year. He's just not been quick enough soon enough against Verstappen. Questionable as to whether he should ever have got that seat, I think, and he's doing nothing to make them want to keep him. And in a race where Verstappen has been taken out on the first lap, they need Tsunoda to come through the field, have a good race and score some solid points, and he's not even managed that now with a clumsy incident with Colapinto's Alpine.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, because Tsunoda has shown some talent in the past with the other team, with Racing Bulls, but it's really not worked with Red Bull this year as Max Verstappen's teammate. Well, meanwhile, we've got some other battles going on, of course. Pierre Gasly, only a fraction ahead of Esteban Ocon. And we can see them fighting now, these two former teammates. They were together, of course, for many years. And now there is a real chance for Esteban Ocon with DRS of the Haas. He's going to go alongside the Alpine down into turn 4, but it's very difficult to go around the outside here. He's going to try and do the cutback. And indeed, a little bit wide there for Gasly. He's been saying on the radio that he's about to lose control, but actually he held that quite well.
He did, and there's another worse feeling of driving a car. Esteban Ocon getting so close to the rear of Pierre Gasly's car. We know from when their time at Alpine together, they didn't really get on, and we can see that still really hasn't changed too much here as Lawson finally now comes into the pits.
Yeah, now this is interesting. So we do think that Liam Lawson's probably doing a single stop in this race, so he's in the pits. We'll see where he comes back out, and then of course where will he be by the end of this race. Still a chance, I think, for him to score some points. Good stop as well, 2.2 seconds, so they will see how he comes out. Alonso still out there at the moment, and he hasn't made a pit stop yet, so there's maybe a chance for Aston Martin to score. Here comes Ocon down the inside of Pierre Gasly, and that is actually a very straightforward move with the DRS helping him for that straight line speed. He got fully alongside Pierre Gasly. Gasly could not defend against that, and that means that Ocon is now into 9th place. Gasly in 10th, and the other Haas of Ollie Behrman is currently in 11th place. Lawson has rejoined with that stop. Oh, by the way, Tsunoda's just been given a 10-second time penalty. No surprise there, Andrew.
No, exactly, and I just want to point out the battle at the front. The gap between Piastri and Norris is coming down. On lap 29 it was 6.4 seconds. We're now on lap 34 and it's down to 5.6, so only incrementally, but he is closing in. And here comes Alonso responding to Lawson's stop, which is a bit late from Aston Martin, because really they could have done with getting in first. But anyway, let's see how it pans out between those two.
So Fernando Alonso into the pits now. Let's see how he gets on. He's not likely to get a podium here today, and he's never had a podium in Austria, but there is a chance to score some vital points for the team. Decent stop, 2.8 seconds, not the fastest we've seen, but he is now heading back out. Let's see how he comes out in comparison to Liam Lawson. We can just see Lawson actually going past, so Lawson will still be ahead of Fernando Alonso, and they are both now on the hard compound tyres and presumably going to the checkered flag.
You would think so. That can be a long race for Fernando Alonso. And of course, he would have done something like this before, managing those tyres. Oscar Piastri, by the way, has just set another fastest lap of the race, a 109.196, with Lando Norris's last lap being at 109.561. So he's taken a good few tenths out of Lando Norris's lead. Of course, Norris could be just nursing these tyres. No need to really overly push them at this stage of the race, but he'll be keeping 100% up to date with the pace of Lando Norris. And actually, just looking back, Lewis Hamilton is doing a fairly decent job, actually, pretty much matching the times of Charles Leclerc and quite easily keeping George Russell at bay. And we touched on about Max Verstappen being out of the race and how important that could be for the constructors. But actually, Anton Antonelli being out of the race means that currently, as it stands, Mercedes have dropped down to third in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari have leapt up into second, and it's 1 point separating these two in the Constructors' Championship at the moment. Of course, a long way left to go, but Constructors' Championship is very important for these teams.
Well, it's a good point you're talking about there, and we're just seeing this battle continuing now as Behrman trying to get past Gasly, and I think he may just have made the move, although Gasly's not giving up, and he may have the inside line, but no, yeah, Behrman's got the straight line speed, so Ollie Behrman is now up into 9th place. Ocon and Behrman, the two Haas cars, both in the points at this stage, which is good news for them. As you mentioned, though, Kimi Antonelli went out early in this race. He was the reason that Max Verstappen went out, because he made contact with Max Verstappen at turn 3 on the opening lap of the race. We're just hearing from Gasly radio.
Like something is broken, it's crazy. I don't know much more longer I can stay on track.
Yeah, understood, mate. We're working on it. Okay, stick with it, please.
Yeah, Gasly still struggling a little bit. But yeah, let's hear from Kimi Antonelli as Rosanna catching up with him.
Kimi, can you explain how you found yourself in that position at the start of the race?
Well, it's I didn't brake. Actually, I didn't brake necessarily too late. It's when I brake, I lost the rears, and then I lost the car. I lost the rear, and then because of that, I had to avoid Lawson. And then I was just trying to slow down the car because obviously I had a big moment, and then I locked up the front left, and I tried as much as possible to slow down the car, but unfortunately there was Max, and I hit him. And I feel very sorry towards him and towards the team as well, because it was a mistake.
Saw you almost having a chat with Max. Was that what you were saying when you were
Yeah, no, I apologized straight away. That's for sure.
So that was Kimi Antonelli saying he apologised to Max Verstappen. It was an unfortunate incident, and Antonelli and Verstappen out on the opening lap of this race. We've just seen Isaac Hadjar make a move on Franco Colapinto. He came from quite a long way back, but I think it feels to me as though Colapinto is now struggling on these tyres a little bit. He didn't fight it as hard as he might have done, and so Colapinto now down in 14th place in the second of the Alpines. Remember, it's Gasly in 10th place in the other Alpine who's saying he's really struggling. Our race leader is Lando Norris. The gap between Norris and Piastri still staying fairly consistent, 5.5 seconds between Norris and Piastri, and then a big gap back to the Ferraris. Charles Leclerc in third place, some 13 seconds behind, and then Lewis Hamilton staying, as you mentioned earlier, Alice, on the same sort of pace as Leclerc. They're running third and fourth. George Russell in 5th place, and then surprisingly in a way we've got both of the Saubers well up on the order. Bortoletto in 6th place and Hulkenberg in 7th. I mean, this could be incredibly important for that Sauber team. They're currently 9th in the Constructors' Championship. Aston Martin is their main rival at the moment, and of course they're struggling a bit.
And actually, if it stays how it is currently, it'll boost them up into P6. So that 14 points they would gain from finishing in these positions. Of course, a long way left to go for them, but that'll be big points.
Yeah, I think what we've got to watch for those final points positions behind Russell is you've got Bortoletto and Hulkenberg in 6th and 7th at the moment, Alice, as you say. But down in 11th and 12th places, Lawson and Alonso on a one-stop by the looks of it. And they're well within range. They're about 14 seconds behind. So they would be ahead when Bortoletto and Hulkenberg pit for the second time. And then the question is, can Lawson and Alonso hold them off?
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's a very good point. I think we could be in for some good battles towards the end, and it's always interesting, Alice, when we've got these teams that are going on different strategies. We can't really understand it until we get very late into the race to see who's worked it out the best way.
Exactly. Still plenty of laps left to race, of course. Gasly's still fighting his Alpine out on track, and actually Lando Norris, by the looks of it, is going to come up to the first of the back markers. He's cleared Yuki Tsunoda, but he's going to come up to the likes of Lance Stroll. Let's hear from Piastri.
Most of those blue flags are doing mid to high 110s, so there's opportunity approaching.
Also, just worth pointing out, Piastri took half a second out of Norris on that last lap, and that gap's down to 4.7 seconds now.
Yeah, and that is the point. When you're having to lap the slower cars out on track, it can sometimes be a very tricky situation. We're just listening on board with Liam Lawson at this point. And of course, he's made that one stop, and he is now up into 10th position. So into the pits has come Gasly. So he's gained that place from Pierre Gasly, who's now come in for his second stop, and he made that early stop with softs going onto a set of hard tyres. He's now onto a set of medium compound tyres. Whether Gasly's going to be able to make this work and get some points here today, we shall find out, but he is now just rejoining.
He is. I wondered if he actually had some floor damage, because of course we've heard plenty of times those that have had floor damage, it's really affected the handling, with drivers saying I can barely keep it on the track. That was the feedback from Pierre Gasly, but he's still carrying on. A set of brand new mediums have been slotted onto the car. Franco Colapinto and Lance Stroll keep this battle going, and having an intense battle actually on track, and just looming in the distance, who's going to be actually within 1 second of this battle, will be Lando Norris. They will have to move out the way, because they will and should do. I'm actually trying to keep an eye out from the flags on the side of the track. Have the blue flags, which means that they only have a few corners that they have to go past until they need to let the driver behind through.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. And I think, yes, in fact, Colapinto is just going into the pits anyway, so that makes it nice and easy for Lando Norris to go through. And now he's going to be chasing after Lance Stroll. Just having a little look at a replay a moment ago. Let's see what this was all about. Was that the Lance Stroll move on Colapinto? Yes, it was. Down into turn 3, and that was a pretty straightforward move. There's no doubt that Colapinto's struggling for grip at the moment.
He is. So he's copied what his teammate is doing. He's coming out on waiting for it to update, but it would be a set of medium tyres. But the gap at the front then, I think actually Lando Norris was released, of course, by Colapinto, but he met Colapinto in the middle of turn 9, and you have to be to the right-hand side of the pit in-line when you're coming into the pits, and he met Colapinto in the middle of the corner, and Colapinto was obviously taking the tighter, slower line, so he actually lost a little bit of time, and that's allowed Piastri to close the gap even more, as he's still trying to eke his way up to the back of Lance Stroll, and he'll be hoping that he can grab a little bit of DRS off him as well.
So the gap between the leaders is now down to 3.2 seconds, as Norris is now going to have to try and find a way past Lance Stroll in theory. So it is definitely coming down a touch more. Charles Leclerc way back in 3rd place, with Lewis Hamilton in 4th, George Russell in 5th, then Bortoleto and Hulkenberg in the 2 Saubers, 6th and 7th at this stage.
And on that Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, Lawson, Alonso battle, we're just getting pictures of it now. Alonso dropped back because he stopped after Lawson, but he's now caught up with him, and he's back in his DRS zone, and that's his engine that you can hear coming down to turn 4 behind Lawson's Racing Bull.
Yeah, and that is very important. Of course, both Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso on this one-stop strategy are going well, but Alonso himself might be able to find a way past Lawson and move up even further, as you say. Let's see how this goes. Lando Norris. Now the gap between Norris and Piastri's come down to almost exactly 3 seconds. But that isn't quite close enough for Piastri to really go on the attack just yet. We shall see how that works. Liam Lawson, meanwhile, keeping Fernando Alonso behind.
He is, and he's going to eke ever closer towards him is Fernando Alonso. He's just going to be within DRS range once again as they go through turn 1, that long run up down through turn 2, which isn't really a corner. It's a kink on the straight, and then into the heavy braking zone, the very uphill turn 3, and he closes down under braking, but he's not quite close enough, Andrew.
And there's no love lost between these two either. Let's not forget, when Lawson came into F1 last year, he had a bit of a ding-dong with Alonso in Austin, and Alonso was really not happy with him. He sort of had a word with him after the race, made his opinion quite clear in the media as well. So I think there's obviously Fernando wants the place anyway, but there'll be a little bit of tiny bit of revenge hiding there too. Here's Norris's radio.
Is he just quicker everywhere now? Or?
He's mainly quicker in high speed, or to see with this loss of traffic.
Yeah, traffic is part of it, and Norris just being told that in high speed it looks as though Piastri has a slight advantage, although it went from 3.0 just back up to 3.2 seconds, so that has changed just a little bit. Still not quite close enough for Piastri to put a big attack on Lando Norris, but it is not over as yet. Nico Hulkenberg now into the pit, so he's on this slightly different strategy. Remember, he started right down at the back for this Grand Prix, so he's made another pit stop, good one, but he's on his way back out now.
He is, and he's going to come out just in front of Oscar Piastri. Lando's been able to escape him coming in front of him, but here's Norris.
And our goal here is obvious, we just keep Oscar out of our DRS.
Easier said than done, though, sometimes. As through goes Oscar Piastri on lapping Lance Stroll. He's now going to have Nico Hülkenberg, who's on a brand new set of medium tyres, and actually has the DRS from Lando Norris.
Yeah, that's right. So we shall see whether Piastri's going to be able to close that gap up anymore. But it's sort of staying around that 3.5 second, just under 3.5 second gap at this point. Lando Norris is dealing with the traffic pretty well. He's not making any errors, mistakes, which is easily done on a track like this, where it's not easy sometimes to find the right spot to go through. 23 laps on the hard compound tyres so far. We are expecting, of course, a second pit stop for both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and for the Ferraris, probably in third and fourth, although they did go a bit deeper into the race. It seems unlikely that they would go all the full distance, but let's wait and see exactly what happens. There are some we know are definitely doing that one stop. Liam Lawson in 8th place, Fernando Alonso in 9th, and Alonso only 4/10 behind Lawson right now. That battle is definitely on. They've got to keep it clean, though, because they've got plenty of other cars that they can perhaps still overtake or gain when they come into the pits, the likes of Ocon, Bortoletto, Russell even perhaps, although he's that little bit further up ahead of them at the moment.
They're just having a look at the current gap slightly further down the field. So Charles Leclerc is 17.3 seconds behind Lando Norris and 22.8 behind Lewis Hamilton is 22.8 behind Norris. So that will be if Norris comes into the pits in the next sort of 4 or 5 laps, he will likely slot in between these two Ferraris, as we're riding on board with Oscar Piastri now. Goes through turn 7 into turn 8, makes a couple of adjustments on the steering wheel. He'll then swoop, use the down change to slow the car down, running all the way up to the edge of the gravel, almost kicking gravel up on the exit. But this gap up front now Oscar's been sort of stuck behind these back markers and having the effect of that dirty air. That gap has now opened up again. It was 3 seconds, it's now 3.7.
Yeah, that's right. So it's actually costing him a bit of time at this stage. Charles Leclerc is still potentially up for a podium here with the Ferrari, and we're just listening in on Charles Leclerc on board as he comes through turn 1. It's all been fairly clean for him so far, but it's been a bit of a lonely race, and George Russell now being told it's time to come into the pits for his second pit stop. He is currently running in 5th place, won this race last year when he was running in 3rd, and there was an incident between the top two. It's not impossible, of course, that we might still get an incident between the current top two if Piastri and Norris get a bit closer again, and it would then be Leclerc most likely to gain from that. But George Russell is into the pits. Let's just see how this pit stop goes.
Oh, it's a little bit slow. Just couldn't quite work out which side it was. I think again on the left-hand side. So slow stops from the left-hand side jobs of a couple of teams today. So where's he going to filter out? He's going to be just behind Liam Lawson as he comes
actually behind Hadjar.
Is it Hadjar? So yeah, you're right. Sorry, he's dropped down into 10th place. And it's not ideal weather conditions, is it, for Mercedes? Much warmer. They're still struggling in these hotter temperatures, and air temperature has risen only slightly up to 31.1. Track temperature has stayed around 49, 50 degrees. But George will easily go straight back past Isaac Hadjar, and of course Hadjar puts up not much of a fight because it's not his race.
Absolutely, and he's now going to be chasing after Fernando Alonso and Liam Lawson, who did though have done these one-stop strategies. That in a way is why Alonso kind of needs to get past Lawson if he possibly can, so that he can make a bit more of a break to George Russell. I think it's very unlikely they're going to be able to hold him off. Russell is going to have better pace, especially now he's on fresher tyres, so it's going to be very difficult for Lawson and Alonso to hold him off, but it's up to George to close that gap. Let's go back to Rosanna.
Ben, I was having a chat with some of the teams this morning and having a look at what Pirelli have been saying over the course of the weekend, and there is a chance that you can do the one stop if you pitted around lap 26. Well, Oscar Piastri pitted to get rid of that medium on lap 25 and switched to the hard. So is Piastri going to switch to a one stop now, and does Lando Norris have to follow through with a two stopper because he stopped a few laps earlier than Piastri? Bit of a question mark now as we get into the sort of third of the race.
Absolutely. And Andrew, what are your thoughts on this? Because as you were saying with Ferrari, they made a slightly later stop as well. Not quite as late as you expected if it was going to be a one stop, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point from Rosanna. Piastri's probably slightly out of range, and I think that McLaren wouldn't probably let that happen. I don't know, but let's see. But I think the question is very much alive with Ferrari, because of course Leclerc stopped the lap after.
And that's a mistake going through into turn one, isn't it? So, but getting it back on again, Lewis Hamilton, yeah.
So Leclerc stopped one lap after Piastri, and Hamilton stopped one lap after him. So let's keep an eye on the Ferraris. I don't think it's very likely, but because the McLarens would just come straight through them again if they change tyres, and Piastri's running wide at turn one as well. On the Lawson-Alonso battle, I think that's more a question of Sauber against them. It's can Bortoleto and Hülkenberg catch back up with Lawson-Alonso? I don't think Racing Bulls and Aston Martin really think they're racing George Russell.
No, that's right. Lewis Hamilton, it was actually turn 3 that Lewis Hamilton had his off. Thankfully, no damage done to the car, but he bounced over the curb pretty hard. It does make you wonder if he's feeling, well, I don't think I can stay on these tyres. Meanwhile, Ollie Behrman goes down the inside of Lance Stroll to take that position, and that is for 12th position. So not in the points again, Behrman, as he was earlier, but there is still a chance that he's going to be able to close up some of these gaps. The next one he's going to be chasing is Nico Hülkenberg, who's currently in 11th position. But Bortoleto, the other Sauber, is still running very, very strongly at this point in 5th position. Listen to Norris Radio.
So Lando, now that Oscar's got free air, his pace and high speed has recovered a bit. Obviously, as we get close to Hajjar, it's going to get tough again. Still doing a good job.
Yeah, so he's just being informed as to what Piastri's up to. They're going to be catching Isaac Hajjar soon, which might make things a little bit more demanding for Lando Norris. But right now, you have to say Lando's doing a good job. He's holding enough pace and enough gap. Charles Leclerc now being told to come into the pits.
He's a kick of oversteer for Lando Norris on the exit of turn 1, but he's managing this race really nicely, and his engineer just saying, look, you will struggle a little bit again when you get into the high speed, the closer you get to Isaac Hajjar. As Hamilton comes in, he's getting a brand new set of the medium tyre, slots on nicely. Sorry, that's Charles Leclerc coming in to the pits, and he'll be feeding back out again. He's got a nice decent gap to Bortoleto, so he'll still come out with no troubles behind him or in front.
Absolutely. Someone said, I did wonder a little bit whether they might go for softs, but it is a bit too early, isn't it? When you've got 20 laps to go on a set of softs, I think that would be too difficult. Whether some who then stop perhaps with another 3 or 4 more laps in, they might risk putting the soft tyres on. Let's see what Bortoleto does. He's coming into the pits now from a very strong 5th position, and he's looking for his first ever points in Formula 1 in Grand Prix racing, and you can see the team keyed up. They want to do a decent job for him. He's gone back out on a set of hard tyres, and they're happy with each other. 2.2 seconds, well done to the Sauber team. They're delivering well.
Impressive stop, but he's going to come out in front. Is that, just trying to work out who they're in, I think that's Oscar Piastri. So he had Nico Hülkenberg come out in front of him when Hülkenberg did the stop. Let's hear from Hamilton.
Is my pace really bad? Because the tyres are fine.
And we box now for fastest race, optimal race.
Yeah, my tyres are okay. Can I extend? How many more laps left?
And box 20 laps.
I don't want to stop. 20 laps left.
Box.
Basically, they never really seem to answer his questions, do they? He asks questions, and they just kind of, give him the answers that they kind of want to. But he's coming to the pits anyway, even though he didn't want to box. He clearly was feeling, I just didn't quite catch his pace on those last few laps by Lewis Hamilton, but he clearly felt that the car was feeling okay, but he's dropped down now behind his teammate Charles Leclerc. Gap is around 8-9 seconds. He's got, again, no pressures from behind. Liam Lawson is the next car behind him as we ride on board with Lewis Hamilton. He'll swoop back down the hill again. You can hear that lifting and coasting that he's doing, just trying to save the tyres, because as we touched on, of course, Ben, the degradation here is mainly thermal due to the heavy braking and acceleration zones.
So Lando Norris holding the pace at the moment, and still just under 4 seconds the gap between himself and Oscar Piastri, his teammate. And this would be good news, of course, for Lando Norris to close up the gap a bit to his teammate, and it would bring it down to a 15-point gap as opposed to a 22-point gap.
And just sorry there, Ben, that was a wide moment for Lando Norris on the exit of turn 4. Hit the brakes, went slightly deep and lost a whole handful of time. The gap when they last crossed the line was 3.9, so he's lost actually a few tenths to Piastri there. So he's still pushing, still struggling for grip, and actually, just so we say that, into the pits he goes.
Yeah, so this is going to be another very important stop. Rosanna, take it up for us.
80 kilometres an hour slows the McLaren right down into the first pit box. The McLaren mechanics are there. They've had slow stops this afternoon. How have they fared this time? 2.5 stop time for Lando Norris, so much better than the 3-second stops we were seeing earlier on. Cars flying down the start-finish straight, but Norris had a pretty healthy stop window, and he's going to come out obviously behind his teammate who has taken the lead of the race, but he's going to have a few cars there as he peels out onto the racing line.
You get some clearer air. Let's use the pace. We should be in at the end of this lap.
So push, basically. Oscar, you've got to push now, like your life depends on it. And Lando was quite lucky there. He's just come out in front of Yuki Tsunoda. And who's that alongside Yuki? That looks like Colapinto. Yeah. So the issue that Oscar's going to have is he's probably now going to come out behind this battle, so he will be in some dirty air. Let's have a look. He's just coming into turn 9, and it looks like he is going to come into the pits now. Lewis Hamilton, he's happy with his brand new set of medium tyres. He's just set the fastest lap of the race.
Absolutely. Well, let's see, Rosanna, let's see whether this pit stop's going to go the same way as it did for Lando Norris a moment ago.
Stamps on the brakes, all fine, no lockups as he comes down into the pit lane, and the mechanics are quick this time around. They've had a bit of a chance to cool down, maybe even warm up, but he was only stopped for 2 seconds. That's a mighty quick stop from the McLaren mechanics, obviously managing to get the job super fast, and he's back out into the fast lane. Norris just going round turn 1 now, and then you've got a couple of other cars following suit, but Norris has got a healthy lead now over his teammate Piastri.
He has, but this is tricky, as you said, Alice. He now comes back out behind that little battle that's going on between Yuki Tsunoda and Colapinto, and this could cost him time, couldn't it?
It is, and it is going to cost him time. Oh, has Tsunoda seen Oscar? Oh, that was nearly contact. They were having their own scrap, and Colapinto's just put Oscar Piastri on the grass down the straight. It's a disaster for McLaren and Oscar Piastri. I was wondering whether they might have kept him out for that extra lap to try and clear this battle, but he's lost a whole heaps of time now coming out behind these two, who of course entitled to have their own battle. They would have had the blue flags only briefly though, yeah, that was I'm not sure what Colapinto was thinking there, putting Oscar Piastri on the grass. He maybe thought that he was somebody else.
So Colapinto went down the inside of Tsunoda, and then Tsunoda cut back in just as Piastri was trying to take them both. And then, as you say, as they went up that last little bit of hill out of turn 3, Colapinto eased over to the right, and Piastri had to take to the grass.
He actually had to shut his DRS as well going down that straight. So yeah, not entirely sure what Colapinto was really thinking there, but
they were lucky.
They were very, very lucky. So looking at the gap now, and Colapinto, that's been noted to forcing another driver off the track. That could have ended in an absolute disaster for Oscar Piastri. Gap though, Ben, is 4.4 seconds between the top two.
Yeah, so that is interesting, and we're just having a look on board with Franco Colapinto as this battle with Tsunoda continues. Almost you can see there's a bit of frustration from him, but he's now managed to get past Tsunoda. But that was a tricky situation. I wonder if their teams weren't quick enough to get into them to say, watch out what's happening, you're having your own battle, but watch out what's happening behind, because you've got a leader coming through. They obviously didn't get that message, I don't think, because Colapinto didn't know that Piastri was right next to him until he suddenly realised he was squeezing him onto the grass. There's another little battle going on here as George Russell gets past Liam Lawson. So George Russell is now up into 5th place. That's where he was for much of this race. Remember, Lawson is just on that single stop strategy along with Fernando Alonso, and the gap between these two has stayed the same for so long. Alonso getting a little closer now, trying to take advantage of the fact that George Russell went through, but no change. Lawson is now in 6th, Alonso in 7th, still some vital points potentially for them. Isaac Hadjar up there in the points as well in 8th place, as we're just taking another little look back at the battle between Tsunoda and Colapinto.
Yeah, a little bit of weaving into braking going there from Yuki Tsunoda. Reminder, he's got a 10-second penalty with that contact with Colapinto down at turn 4, but Oscar Piastri, he's just set the fastest lap of the race, the first driver into the 1:08 during this race, and he's going quickly, Ben. He's just set the fastest of anyone in the middle sector. Lando's last lap, a 1:09.3, so a chunk quicker was Oscar Piastri, and he's closing that gap ever more. It was 4.4 seconds, it's now 3.2.
Fernando Alonso still keeping the pressure on Liam Lawson. So Liam Lawson with the Racing Bulls looking to try and score some vital points. It could be a very good result if he can hold on to it, but also Bortoleto making a move on Hadjar, and he has just done a very good move, Bortoleto, with the Sauber, so that's brought him up into 8th position. So as he looks for his first ever points in Formula 1, there is a great opportunity. It's on a track where he won in Formula 2 last year. It's a track he loves competing on, and he's doing a great job, and even his teammate is still back up there in the points. He's currently in 10th position.
So just looking at the Norris-Piastri battle, they've got quite a lot of traffic to navigate their way through. Another fastest lap from Oscar Piastri. Gaps sort of stayed the same, but Norris has upped the pace. He is only a couple of tenths shy of Oscar that lap, but Piastri's just going to make his way past Pierre Gasly, and then in front of Norris he's got Behrman, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Bortoleto. He's got a whole handful of cars that they've got to try and get past, and a 5-second time penalty for Colapinto. That was forcing another driver off track, and that would have been forcing Oscar Piastri off track.
Indeed, so he has been penalised, as you said, and you thought that was quite likely. Well, he has. Colapinto has been penalised for that. He is outside the points. It's not going to make a huge difference for his result here for Colapinto, so that's a shame. We are just keeping an eye on the Liam Lawson versus Fernando Alonso battle, as Alonso, of course, went through a lot of this season with failing to score points for Aston Martin, but then the last couple of races, things have gone much better for Alonso. He was 7th in Canada, he was 9th in Spain. Those are the only points that he's scored so far this year, but he's got a chance, there's no doubt about it, to try and do a little bit better here. But also for Liam Lawson, this could be very, very important. He hasn't scored very often at all so far this year, and we shall have to see whether he can hold on and keep the double world champion behind him for the remainder.
Certainly can. Leclerc seems to be making decent gains on lap time as well. He's not under immense pressure at all, as Nico Hulkenberg was quite a simple move for him down the inside, and that's a real good job by him. He's just set a fastest lap for him of the race, so personal best. Another fastest lap for Oscar Piastri. This traffic's going to be pretty crucial for our leaders. Norris has now passed Behrman, and I think he's passed Ocon as well. No, he isn't, just past Behrman, sorry. So Piastri's next in line to go past Behrman, and a battle going on between, it looks like Esteban Ocon, who's now stolen the final points-paying position in 10th place, pushed Hadjar out of the points, and one driver to keep an eye on as well is Bortoleto, who's starting to steam up to the back, well, setting much better lap times and heading towards the rear of Fernando Alonso.
Absolutely. Well, let's see how this goes. Norris with that advantage, still 2.9 seconds, but Oscar Piastri setting such rapid lap times. Can he get a bit closer? 2.8 seconds. So Norris is doing a fine job, but Piastri's not giving up yet. Charles Leclerc still in that 3rd place, that rather lonely 3rd place that he's been in for a long, long time in this race with Ferrari. Hamilton in 4th position. Russell has moved himself back into 5th ahead of Liam Lawson. And then in that lower end of the top 10, we've really got these teams that are battling for points, very important points for the likes of Racing Bulls that are 7th in the Constructors' Championship. Aston Martin are currently 8th, and they, the two drivers, Lawson and Alonso, are those two teams. But also you've got Sauber, who are only a couple of points behind Aston Martin. So this, as you said, could change the constructor order down at the lower end. It's not going to help. Alpine are not going to help much. They're down at the bottom on 11 points, and I don't think either Gasly or Colapinto are going to score any points here.
No, they certainly are, unless the disaster strikes for those up in front. Lando Norris has caught up to the back now of one of the lapped cars, and the gaps come down even more. Oscar Piastri 107.9, the only driver at the moment to be in the 107s, and he set another fastest middle sector. Lando's right up, tucked behind the back of Hajar, who moves nicely out the way for him, and he's out of the way by the time he gets to the high-speed turn 9. But the next driver up the road will be Esteban Ocon. It's intense times because you've got that traffic, but once you get that clean air, you've got to really make the most of it. And I think it seems to be Piastri doing that slightly better at the moment compared to Lando Norris. He's pumping in fastest laps when he does have that clear air.
Yeah, he's going to get the DRS himself on Hajar now as well. And as he comes down towards, yes, it's going under 2 seconds now. So the gap is definitely closing between the two McLaren front runners here. The gap down to 1.9 seconds. Can he get it to within a second and then get the DRS available? As they're lapping other cars, this could be an opportunity. But for now, it's Lando Norris. Under 10 laps to go to complete the Austrian Grand Prix. Norris from Piastri. Leclerc still in a lonely third. Hamilton in fourth. Russell in fifth. Liam Lawson in sixth. Still defending from Fernando Alonso in seventh. Let's listen to Norris Radio.
I need some pace. Please help.
And the main pace difference right now is high speed. Hopefully linked just to traffic.
Well, I mean, that doesn't really give him the answer, does it? Hopefully just linked to traffic. Basically, hopefully it's not just Piastri driving better than you, but I think it seems at the moment that it could be. He just seems to have a bit more confidence, and we've seen shots of Lando Norris going through turn 10, the rear really squirming all over the place, and another fastest first sector for Oscar Piastri. Lando's tucking into the toe of Esteban Ocon, who's just in front of him, and he's not going to be able to get past him, I don't think, on the way into turn 4. So he's going to have to wait a little bit longer, and crucially it's going to be through the twistiest section on the track as well, Ben.
Yeah, and you can easily lose time going through lapping other cars at this stage, and he's lapping those that are in the top 10 now, the point scorers he's about to lap. But this is a short circuit, of course, and there he goes down the inside. Actually, that didn't cost him any time at all. That worked really well. I wonder if Piastri might find it a little bit harder, but the gap has come down even further, down to 1.6 seconds. But for Piastri to follow here, let's just see. I think Ocon will probably get out of his way. Yeah, there's no problem there. Ocon actually backs off a little bit, and so Piastri's able to go through. But the gap back down to 1.6 seconds now, and it'll be Hülkenberg that they will be lapping next. Nico Hülkenberg in 9th position, Bortoletto in 8th. Both Saubers looking to score points here today. Fernando Alonso as close as ever to Liam Lawson, but still unable to find a way past. I wonder if he's going to have just that little bit of extra grip in the last few laps. We shall have to wait and see whether that makes any difference. And for the Ferrari team, of course, the opportunities to score some reasonable points here, especially with just Russell behind them in 5th place. That opportunity, as you said, that Ferrari may well move ahead of Mercedes after this race. That will be a good boost for the team. They've made quite a few changes to the car for this weekend, and it does seem to be working reasonably well. It's not up to the pace of the McLarens, that's for sure. McLarens are in a bit of a world of their own at the moment, aren't they?
They are, for now at least, anyway. I'm just looking at slightly further through. Decent pace still from Charles Leclerc. He's doing only a couple of tenths slower than Lando Norris that last time round, but of course Lando had a little bit of traffic, and going through, they've next up to lap will be Nico Hülkenberg for the two McLarens. Then slightly further up the road is Bortoletto, and eventually they do have enough laps to close down to this Lawson and Alonso battle, but I don't know whether they'll have quite enough laps to do that.
Yeah, we shall see. And of course, Lawson and Alonso are the one-stoppers. They've only made the single stop for tyres in this race. Lawson in 6th, Alonso in 7th. Bortoletto, having made 2 stops, does have grippier tyres, but whether he's going to be able to close that gap, we shall wait and see. So we could see some more points changes just towards the checker flag, but right now, up front, we're still focused very much on Lando Norris. Let's listen.
Lando, just for your awareness, we have a bit of damage on our front wing, which is making the balance change a bit. Nothing we can do, just for your awareness.
Now, is that Alice, is that something as a driver you almost don't want to know, because you know your rival, your teammate is behind you doing some good laps? It almost hurts to hear that there might be something not quite perfect with your front wing.
Well, then he could change his driving style potentially to try and suit that. Obviously, it's not ideal having damage. He's not really been off anywhere, so it could be debris, gravel that have broken something, or potentially we've maybe seen off camera, we haven't seen on camera of him going off wide over those sausage curves. But actually, Oscar now has the DRS thanks to Gabriele Bortoleto, and is able to then benefit that and close this gap down even more.
Yeah, he's got it down to 1.7. But what do you think, guys? How is this going to work out? And this final coming up for just 5 laps to go here. Lando Norris is doing a pretty good job, isn't he?
He is. I don't want to commentate as curse it, of course, any of these drivers on the grid, but it looks like Lando does have this fairly comfortably. A much better first sector from Oscar Piastri, but he did have the DRS. And going through sector 2 now, Lando is a 1/10.5 faster than Piastri.
Yeah, they are fighting each other, but there's very little difference. At the early stages of this race, Piastri was right on the back of Lando Norris, and we thought at one point, just briefly, he did get in front of Lando Norris, but Lando Norris was able to get back in front of him. And ever since then, Norris has controlled it. He's had the advantage of making the pit stops earlier, because if you're the lead of the team, 2 teammates, you do have the advantage of being able to make the first pit stop. That always gains you with fresh tyres going back out again. It has certainly helped Lando Norris today, and for Oscar Piastri, who started in 3rd, made that great start, got into 2nd. He has been fighting for this win throughout, but you've got to think it's going to be very difficult for him now to close the gap enough to actually challenge for the win. Charles Leclerc still in 3rd place, Lewis Hamilton in 4th, George Russell in 5th, Liam Lawson in an excellent 6th place, still under pressure from Fernando Alonso, whereas the 2 Saubers are catching. Bortoleto now 2.1 seconds behind Alonso, Hulkenberg a further way back, but it does look as though Sauber are going to score double points. And Esteban Ocon, once again, after not a great qualifying, it looks like Ocon is going to be able to get a point at least in this race. Lando Norris did run over the curve a bit just now, didn't he?
He did, and I was just trying to look into his front wing. It looks like the front left upper flap on his front wing has a little bit of damage. It's nowhere near as stable as it should be, and I'm guessing that will be just from running over curbs, potentially, like we've said, a little bit of gravel, because there has been quite a bit of gravel kicked up onto the circuit. So it'd be nothing really that Lando can do about that at all. Just try and square the corners off a little bit better, and try and get that the car rotated and get down on the power, as Oscar Piastri squirming all on the exit of turn 3 as he applies the power, and the gap is fairly stable. Last time round, a 109.043 for Lando Norris and a 109.037 for Oscar Piastri.
And Lando, you need corner discipline. Turn 1, turn 3, pace and high speed is good.
So all the time there's this conversation with his engineer just to know where he's got to avoid making errors or do things slightly differently. It's all working well at this stage. He's got a couple more cars he's catching up on now, but the gap is staying much the same. It's Alonso versus Bortoleto just up ahead, actually. Bortoleto is right there now, so we're just having a look on board with Gabriele Bortoleto. He's in 8th place, and he is now right behind Fernando Alonso, who has dropped away a little bit from Liam Lawson because he's now going into defensive mode. But here's a chance for Bortoleto. No, I wondered if he would make a lunge down the inside into turn 3. He decided not to.
He did. Alonso was having it covered, though. I think he saw him coming up behind and thought, yeah, you can give it a go, but I'm going to make sure that I cover it. And a very solid race from Bortoleto. He's going to, hopefully for him at least, get his first points. Oh, Alonso running nearly wide in the gravel. Sonoda's watching on. Of course, he's not in this battle at all, and actually he'll potentially wiggle and a bit too deep into turn 6 for Bortoleto.
let's not forget that Fernando Alonso is Gabriel Bortoletto's manager.
Yes.
But this is not the first time they found each other together on track. So let's see, a couple of laps to go. It looks like the Sauber's got a big pace advantage, Ben, doesn't it? But can Alonso hold it off?
Well, remember, he's on fresher tyres because Alonso's just done the one stop. They're being caught by the leaders as well. Bortoletto very close now to Fernando Alonso, the 20-year-old Brazilian on his debut season in Formula One. Is he going to find a way past the double world champion who's also been his manager in Formula One? Can he do it cleanly? That's the key. He's going down the inside into turn 3, late braking, absolutely beautiful move. Is the exit going to work? Alonso clever as ever, because he knows there that if you go in too quick, you don't get on the power early enough. And sure enough, he's now got DRS and he's got the advantage and taking it back, a bit like Norris on Piastri earlier.
Yeah, and he's going to try and get the cut back, be on the right hand side, but he's not. He's going to have the outside for turn 6. Alonso shows him the curb on the exit, but Alonso's run a little bit deep, but then he quickly got in the dirty air, did Bortoletto, and wasn't able to make the most of it. And I think Bortoletto, he's probably going to have to let, there we go, he's going to have to let Lando Norris go past. So Norris sails on through as we head on to the final lap of this race, Ben.
Absolutely. Lando Norris is making this work well. The gap has come down to 1.3 seconds between himself and Oscar Piastri in the background, and Lando now has a bit more to do because he's got to get past Fernando Alonso. Is this going to open the chance for Piastri? I rather doubt it on the final lap whether it's quite going to work, because Alonso will let him through easily. Yeah, no problem for Lando Norris into turn 3. And in the meantime, Oscar Piastri's got to get past both of them as they have their battle. So it's looking good, this, for Lando Norris. Does look as though he's got all advantage, although Alonso, they're almost trying to defend his position. Oh, I'm surprised.
Yeah, he was basically trying to make sure that he wasn't going to become under huge attack from behind in Bortoletto, and Norris didn't have the DRS, so he was a bit of a sitting duck. So Fernando had no choice, but I think he slightly missed his braking point and nearly went into the back of Lando Norris. Gosh, can you imagine? That would have been an absolute disaster. But a perfect race it's been for Lando Norris.
It certainly has, and he's coming into the final 2 corners now. Lando Norris, who started from pole position in the race here in Austria, is coming across the line. Lando Norris wins the Austrian Grand Prix. It's the first McLaren win at this track since 2001, the 7th ever for McLaren here, and for Lando Norris, his first win at a track that's always mattered to him, where he took his first podium at this track. What a wonderful result, and he's held off his teammate Oscar Piastri. Third place goes to Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and we're waiting now for 4th place man Lewis Hamilton to come over the line as well. And Lewis in 4th position, never quite had that chance to close up to his teammate Charles Leclerc. 5th place for George Russell, Lawson in 6th, Alonso in 7th, ahead of Bortoletto in 8th, Hulkenberg in 9th, and Esteban Ocon taking the final point in 10th place. But for Lando Norris, he takes his 3rd win of 2025, the 7th of his career, and a very, very important victory from pole position here. The 9th time that's been done on the current layout of this circuit, winning from pole position. It wasn't easy all the way, but he did a great job. And well done to Gabriel Bortoletto, scoring his first points in Formula One, the Brazilian, who has shone all weekend. And for the Sauber team to have both drivers in the points, particularly with Hulkenberg starting down in 20th. Bortoletto did start in 8th and has finished 8th. Hulkenberg came from the back.
Well done, mate. Well done. Great job.
Yeah, well done, everyone. Beautiful 1-2. That was great. Ish. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Amazing work. Just keep it up.
I agree, mate. Follow the process.
Yes, and that has brought the gap between himself and Piastri down to 15 points. So Piastri is still the championship leader. But for Norris, that was exactly the kind of result that he needed. And it's the 3rd time this year he's won from a pole position. He's got to keep it going. And, of course, this will give him confidence going into a very important next week, the British Grand Prix.
It will. Home race, but a solid job as well from Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, sorry for the move in turn 4. My bad.
I mean, He's on about that lockup, which he nearly collided with his teammate Lando Norris, and I think it was just a bit too late on the brakes for Oscar. I don't think there was any intention to go down the inside as they pull up into Parc Ferme, and as you said, Ben, this really will give Lando Norris a nice little bit of confidence as he heads into Silverstone next weekend.
Rosanna, what are you seeing down there?
Oh, it's a busy pit lane. All the mechanics are coming up towards Parc Ferme. And the McLaren pit wall, they've been congratulating each other. Neil Hooley came over, the technical director of engineering, to congratulate Andrea Stella. And they had a pretty emotional hug, I'd have to say. So perhaps there was a bit of a worry about whether the upgrade that they'd brought to the track was going to work this weekend. Will Joseph, Lando Norris's engineer, his race engineer, who you hear on the radios, just congratulated Andrea Stella as well. But he's sitting there, he's just smoothing through his hair, Andrea Stella. A very calm character, so well spoken, as we know. We've come to really love the way he talks to us as media and as to the fans as well. They're very candid, very honest, the McLaren team, but hugs all round on the pit wall. They're very pleased with what they've achieved today, so smiles and hugs. I can hear a little bit of laughter maybe as well, but yeah, everybody backslapping each other as they deserve to do. This was a pivotal point, Austria, wasn't it? A couple of years ago, that's where they brought their upgrade, and that's what turned their fortune. I'm hoping I'm going to get a word with Andrea Stella in just a moment. Tom Stallard, race engineer for Oscar Piastri, also congratulating Andrea Stella. And Stella just takes a moment again, just it's almost like a self-conscious, just stroking the back of his head, Stella, almost just making himself feel perhaps a little less flustered than he should be at this moment. He's just rearranging his collar, just readying himself, I'm sure, for all the attention that's to come his way this afternoon. Having a quick chat with Randeep Singh, the racing director for McLaren as well, also sits on the pit wall. And you can hear the screaming. The drivers have pulled up into Parc Ferme. Lando Norris taking a drink of water. I think he'll have earned that this afternoon. It's so hot here in Austria. Bends down to take off his sort of knee protector, as it were, to make sure his legs don't rub together in the cockpit. And Oscar Piastri congratulating the mechanics who've raced to Parc Ferme to say well done to the Australian driver, making it a 1-2 this afternoon. Andrea Stella just taking his time. Seems to be doing a lot on his phone. He's obviously sending a few messages. Of course, Zach Brown not here this weekend, so unable to share in the on-track celebrations, but I'm sure he'll have been following the team's progress.
He clearly doesn't want to speak to you, Rosanna. Maybe that's what it is. He'll get off the pit wall when you walk off.
Charlie said I maybe could have a word, so I'm just going to stand here and have a little linger in the sunshine, but the pit lane is filling up, people wanting to be part of the podium celebrations. Lots of fans now down in the pit lane as well. Photographers first, so they can get their position for Parc Ferme, and now the fans of the sport being let in as well. So yeah, it's very busy down here. Busier than the grid was.
You'll have to bring some of producer Paddy's lemon drizzle cake to him next time. Maybe that will draw him off.
Andrea, congratulations. That was majestic. A 1-2 for the team. Now, you knew that Oscar Piastri was in contention for the win today as well, but from lap 15, it felt fairly nerve-wracking for you guys on the pit wall about how it was going to unfold. What was it like?
Well, first of all, with Oscar, we know that he keeps building during the weekend, so we knew that today he would have been definitely in contention for the victory. He did a good job at the start, recovered immediately the position, and then here in Austria, with the DRS being so powerful, if the cars are similar, then you stay hooked to the car ahead, which makes it obviously entertaining from a sporting and racing point of view. But that was great racing today, so we are happy with the result. We are happy with how our drivers handled themselves. So P1, P2, we couldn't hope for any better today.
Lando says trust the process. He's been working so hard to get these weekends to hook up, and is this the start potentially of a positive momentum shift for Norris?
Well, I think the positive momentum has already shifted from Monaco, and I think that Canada were a couple of incidents, or let me say inaccuracies in execution, both in qualifying and in the race, but the speed has always been there for Lando, and we needed to polish a couple of things, and I think he has demonstrated once again what kind of talent, what kind of racecraft he has. But I would immediately say the same for Oscar. We are just very lucky to have two great drivers. race.
A final one from me. You did have to get a little bit involved today, just saying that the manoeuvre at turn 4 from Oscar Piastri was marginal. What do you mean by marginal? That was too much going for it, was it?
Well, marginal was that the two cars got too close together in a situation in which Oscar had lost a little bit of control of the car with the front lockup. So this is a situation that goes too far in terms of racing safely between our two drivers. We acknowledge that from the pit wall, and we are very proud of how much Oscar immediately after the checkered flag said, apologies for that, I acknowledge, we know how we are racing. So just very proud of the team, and we knew that after Canada, if anything, we come to this reminder of the season even more united and stronger.
You steered the ship well. Good luck at Silverstone next weekend. Big weekend again for Norris, home race.
Yeah, for everyone, for McLaren and for Oscar. Thanks.
Well, there we go. Very good to hear from them. And it is time now that we can hear from... We will in just a moment. We will hear from the top drivers in just a moment. But it's fascinating to see that McLaren have yet another 1-2. I mean, they've had a number of 1-2s. That's the fourth 1-2 finish of this season. They are very much the dominant force. And, of course, in the Constructors' Championship, this is going to move them even further ahead again.
It could be. And as well with the potentially the two-horse race in the championship, with Verstappen, of course, being taken out by Antonelli on the first racing lap that we had here today. But, of course, there's still a long way left to go. Plenty of racing still left to do. And it's going to be nice, of course, for McLaren, as Andrea said, heading into next weekend. A home race for the team. And he said a home race for Oscar. Oscar spent a lot of his time growing up in the UK, living down to, I think it was near London. I might be corrected if Andrew knows that better, but he did a lot of his racing in the UK and in Europe, and started his race car career in British Formula 4 and then worked his way up. So he spent a lot of his later years of racing in the junior categories living in Oxford. So certainly a home race as well for him. And of course, I can imagine the grandstands next weekend are going to be packed, not just with Lando Norris fans, but McLaren fans as well.
Let's get an opinion from our F1 correspondent for BBC Sports, Andrew Benson. Andrew, what do you reckon we've seen? What's been important on the Austrian Grand Prix here today?
Well, I think it was a win that Lando Norris really badly needed. If he'd lost this race, especially having got pole position, that would have been quite a significant blow in the championship, I think. Not only to take the lead out to more than a race win if Piastri had won instead of him, but also psychologically and as to what it said. He didn't drive a flawless race. He made a couple of errors. In fact, the time that Piastri passed him briefly on lap 13 was because Norris had made mistakes at turns 9 and 10 on the previous lap. But he kept his head, got him back down the next straight, and stayed cool through the entire race and managed it really well from that moment on, even though Piastri put him under pressure in the closing laps. So there's a lot of tension in the race, even if from about the first stop onwards the audience watching and listening might not have thought the race was in doubt for Norris. It certainly was until the end, and I think he'll take a lot from that. And he loves Silverstone. I did a sort of like winner stays on racetracks thing with him, which you might be able to watch on social media through the BBC in the next few days leading up to Silverstone. It's where he basically made it clear it's his favourite circuit. Of course, it's his home race. 140,000 people there are going to be cheering him on. The championship gap down to 15 points, a really important and potentially key turning point in the season.
Well, fascinating. We shall see how it all goes, but let's see how Lando Norris feels having taken the victory as he speaks to Davide Valsecchi.
Yeah, it was a tough race. Pushing the whole way through, but tricky, hot, tiring. But the perfect result for us as a team. A 1-2 is exactly what we want, and we did it again, so I'm very happy.
Probably the best comeback after Canada. What a turnaround. And how did you handle Oscar Piastri in the first 20 laps? And how smart you were in a certain point when you took you just up there in turn 3.
We had a great battle, that's for sure. It was a lot of fun for me. A lot of stress, but a lot of fun. And yes, a nice battle. So well on to Oscar. Hopefully it was a nice one for everyone to watch. But inside the car was tough, especially when he was in the DRS. The DRS is so big around here. It's hard to get him out of the gap. But once I did, I could manage things pretty well. But it was so quick. So it was good fun.
Congratulations. Thank you. It was a great show.
Thank you.
The power and excitement of Valsecchi. Let's hear from him talking to Piastri now.
Oscar, congratulations. How was from inside their car? Because it was impressive how you could put pressure and apply pressure for all the first 20 laps was just something unbelievable. How was from inside?
Intense. I hope it was good watching because it was pretty hard work from the car. So yeah, tried my absolute best, and probably could have done a better job when I just got ahead momentarily. But yeah, it was a good battle. A bit on the edge at times, and probably pushed the limits a bit far. But yeah, it was a good race. That's what we're here to do: try and race each other and try and fight for wins. And that's what we did today. It was close for me, but not quite enough. So thanks to the team to have the kind of pace we did whilst battling each other was very impressive. So I can't thank the team enough for the car we've got.
And after yesterday, after your Friday, did you expect to be so competitive to fight Lando all through the entire race?
Yeah, I thought it was possible. I think qualifying yesterday was unfortunate with the yellow flag, and then I felt like the pace this weekend has been good. So I think once I could stay in the DRS, I felt pretty good. And afterwards, once I dropped out after the first stop, it was tough to make the progress to get back. But some things to go over, see if we could have done anything better.
Congratulations. Lovely show.
Thank you.
The leader of the championship. Well done.
Now let's hear from Charles Leclerc, who got his 5th podium finish here.
Almost. Tell me your feeling after you're back on podium. I think at the beginning you wanted to fight for victory, but then the pace was there. What do you think? How do you rate your weekend?
I rate our weekend as a team, I think, really well. But unfortunately, the pace today was just not enough. In the first corner, I was thinking about going, but Lando closed the door, and then that left the door open to Oscar. I lost the second place there, but then anyway, I think they were too fast for us to stay in second. So third was the best we could do. I don't regret much of what we've done today. I think we've done our maximum. Just not enough pace.
And tell me about your Ferrari. The move at the corner 3 was good because behind happening the contact, so probably it was better to stay calm in that corner. And about your Ferrari, seems that during the weekend you improved a bit. Then in the race, seems that in the first part you were closer. How was your feeling inside the car?
Yeah, in the first. Set, I think I overpushed a little bit at the beginning, trying to follow them. Then I degraded a little bit more, but it's part of the game. I've tried at the end, and he didn't make it today. I think eventually we need more pace. We've brought some upgrades though this weekend, and they definitely helped us to do a step forward. But we need to keep pushing in that direction in order to close the gap to the McLaren that for now are too quick.
And about the next racing, because we are missing a Leclerc victory this year. So tell me about the next races.
I'm missing it too, so I'll give it all to try and be back on the top step of the podium. Obviously, this is our main priority. The whole team deserves it, and hopefully it will be at the next race in Silverstone. We'll give it all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Done.
Congratulations.
Well, good news for Ferrari. They were happy, but so good for McLaren today, Alice. That 1-2 finish has worked so well again.
It has. They'll clearly be hoping to take the momentum going into Silverstone, which I'm sure they will. Lots of fans, as Andrew said, that will be there cheering on Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, of course the rest of the British drivers on the grid, and as well as McLaren as a team.
Well, we've got the Checker Flag podcast coming up in a couple of hours to talk about this, and of course we will be thinking a bit more about Silverstone next week as well. Many thanks to you, Alice Powell, Andrew Benson and Rosanna Tennant, of course, but it's time for us to go back to Katie.
Thank you very much, Ben. Thanks to Rosanna, Alice and Andrew as well. So check out the latest Checkered Flag podcast. That will drop later on BBC Sounds to all the reaction there for that victory for Lando Norris in Austria. But our attention on 5 Live Sport now turns towards England's Lionesses.